My fellow Americans, it is time to take our freedom back.
Episode number 50. 1 year later, here we are.
Wow, man, that's awesome.
You know, I got to say, before we introduce our guests and we get going here, I got to say this has been one of the coolest experiences of my life, being around you guys and sharing all our thoughts and ideas, agreeing, disagreeing at times. But as I watched that intro, you know, going back to little shots of over the past year, there's so many things that we've done. And to think that we have not affected this county, this country, with positive change would just be ludicrous. I mean, we've done some great things. And when I say we, I mean the people in this room and the many, many people outside this room who are with us. I mean, it's been really humbling and awesome. So
there's so many key players.
Yeah. So thanks. I appreciate all the viewers too for keeping on watching and keeping on supporting us. And we couldn't do this without you guys. And just to be here, I thank you guys for allowing us to sit here and for listening to what we have to say. So, Wood, do you want to introduce our guest?
Yeah, we have Bob Holsinger. He's running for Shasta County clerk. And I want to first ask, Bob, what the heck were you thinking?
I'm not sure it was.
I don't think people are thinking when they make that decision.
He was trying to get away. We wouldn't let him.
Yeah, everywhere I went, so are you going to run or will you run?
Yeah.
It just didn't matter. It didn't matter what group I was with, but everything from the dreaded militia to the California Rifle Pistol Association to Freedom Coalition to you name it. Yeah. Everywhere you went.
Yeah, I heard you at Freedom Coalition. I'm like, he just needs to have that job.
Yeah,
I don't know what's happening.
I was waiting until we got rid of Modi.
Yeah,
get rid of that individual.
Yep.
And when that was over, then I was free not to observe anymore. So so I signed up and said, "Let's go for a ride."
Yeah. Did you want to run?
No, had no interest in running in politics.
So the great question is why?
Why?
Yeah.
Because someone had to step up, because I have election integrity knowledge, election law knowledge, because I've been reading that for the last 5 elections in Shasta County.
And you've been on the ground. You've been boots on the ground. You've been watching this. You've been with other people.
I've been recruiting people, training them up in election codes, sending them out to watch the polls, watch the ballot processing down the clerk's office. And the things I'm seeing, the things that were documented, the things that were sent to election integrity, it should not happen in Shasta County. We should be better than that. We're small.
So have we seen mischief in elections in Shasta County?
Mischief is depends on how you define mischief. Have
Errors.
we seen irregularities, I call them? Yes, we have. And there are things that should have never happened. Mm-hmm. One of the problems they have is their amount of training that they have, which is 2.5 hours for poll workers. Yeah. Whether you're an inspector or a poll worker, 2.5 hours is totally inadequate. Mm-hmm. And so they go to the field. There's no one there to help them. They can't even set up the machines in some of the precinct polls. Sure. It's pathetic. But, yeah, it's been a challenge.
So somebody watching this might say, well, we just had a recall election here in Shasta County, and there was a lot of questions surrounding that. And on our side, we had a lot of doubt and maybe some concern and worry even about the way that would go, you know, because of the election integrity issue. And so people out there will say, well, you guys won that, so obviously there is integrity in the office. They're doing things the right way. What say you to that?
I say we get what we observe.
Yeah.
So I'm a big proponent of observation, citizen observation through the polls all the way through the ballot processing system. I'm not a fan of ballot drop boxes. Mm-hmm. They're in Shasta County because my opponent brought them here in 2012. Mm-hmm. And she's patting herself on the back and telling everybody about it. I don't have to have drop boxes in Shasta County. Mm-hmm. When I'm in the clerk's office, they're going to take a hike.
Yeah.
There's no reason to put Shasta County vote at risk.
And this comment coming on the heels of 2,000 Mules. And I don't know if you've seen it or not,
Twice.
or the people watching it, but I'll tell you, that was one of the most eye-opening things to me because it validated what I hoped wasn't true. You know, we want to believe that, okay, this was just a screwed up deal. People went the other way. I don't think any one of us wanted to think the election was rigged, but I think that was irrefutable at that point. And if it's happening on a national level, it's really happening here. You know, it's happening everywhere, or at least has a propensity to happen.
It has the propensity. The ballot, there's 15 ballot boxes out, I believe, during this election coming up in the primary. Not one of them has a camera on it that I'm aware, unless they're in a store and there might have a security camera and checkout lanes that just happen to catch the box, but no intentional cameras at all. But then we've also got in California, we got ballot harvesting is a legal thing to do in California. And we've seen where ballots are stuffed in the boxes and there's no signature on who brought them to the box.
Sure.
That's against the
And
law.
that gets counted.
It gets counted.
You know, and I think in California, we get such a bad rap for obviously the way our government at the state level is. I travel up and down the state a lot.
Yep.
And I go to all these small towns, mostly rural communities. And I'm yet to find a person that voted for Joe Biden. So we've bought this narrative for so often that, well, you guys are outnumbered by the cities, which, you know, on its face is pretty easy to understand that concept, right? They have the population centers, but I really don't think that there's more of them. It would have to be a case where every single person that lived in a suburb or a city was a Democrat or a liberal, and I don't think that's the case at all.
Did you guys see the statistics on Twitter where 49.7% of his Joe Biden's followers were fraudulent? Anyways, that was just new information came out a couple days ago. It makes you question
the numbers
like
just
how
don't add up.
But you can believe it. He never campaigned. And Trump was doing 5 campaign rallies a day there at the last. It's like, holy cow.
I said during that whole cycle, election cycle, that if I was an alien and I'd never been to planet Earth and you put me in the middle of Earth and you said, hey, who's going to win the American election? I'd say Donald Trump, just by looking and watching at what was going on, you know?
Oh, yeah.
It's not to say even that I'm a Trump fan or supporter. That's irrelevant. I would say that if it was anybody, you know? But the fact that this man was filling stadiums and had people filling lakes with boats and rallies and
Parade,
it
trains.
was insane. And they couldn't get 14 people to show up to Joe Biden's rallies, you know? And they say, well, it was COVID because we were being responsible. But that's not the way this goes, you know? So all of a sudden, you were being irresponsible when it came down to voting? I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all.
So the clerk, that's the importance of it. We went right to election stuff, but there may be people that are listening that are going, how does that play in?
What's a clerk do?
Yeah. What do you do there?
Okay.
And how do you that's the fabric of our republic.
Yes, it is. It is. The county clerk's job is much more than just a clerk. I mean, we think clerks sometimes, oh, it's a paper pusher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to the clerk's office there. The clerk does a lot of things, everything from processing the early applications for passports. They'll take photos. They'll give the person the forms to fill out. They'll fill out the forms, and then they'll send them on their way to send them to the State Department for
Marriage
processing.
licenses.
Marriage licenses, whether it's public or if you want a private marriage license that's not run in a newspaper, you can do that. Fictitious business names. All those things are in the clerk's office. They also do some recording of different things, which is unusual. Business licenses, that sort of thing.
And this is like a position or a race that nobody's ever in the history of politics paid attention to. So I couldn't have told you who the registrar was before all of this. You know, I couldn't have told you
voter
So
integrity.
the biggest thing, biggest part of the thing in the clerk's office is our elections. It's the register of voters. It's where our voting rolls reside. That's where the ballots and everything are printed up because they design them, send them to the vendors. They also make recommendations on machines that they use to help with the ballots and the ballot paper and what they use. All that stuff is coming out of the clerk's office.
And it's individual county by county.
Individual county by county. The machines are approved by the state of California. There's a list of approved machines. And unfortunately, we made a bad decision and got the wrong machine, but we'll fix that.
Yeah.
This might be the most important official position. I mean, one of them for sure that's overlooked big time because, I mean, what else is more important than the will of the people and their vote counting for what they want and how they want to live and be governed, you know?
Well, I think it's the most sacred part of our system. you
Election
know?
transparency.
If we lose one vote, if one person's vote is not counted, that's too many. Then our republic falls apart. Then we really don't have a country, you know? And that's our problem here in California is that we vote and then we say, well, our votes don't count. They call the races before they're even started, before the ballots even started
Before
to
the
get
polls
counted.
are closed, yeah.
Sure. You know?
Which communist dictator said it doesn't matter who votes, it matters who counts the votes.
Absolutely.
You know,
and that's what we're
we're to that point in America, I feel like.
Right now, it's the state of California right now for even like, am I correct that the state of California still has to correct or give the final count on the votes to certify them?
They certify it effectively after we certify it. We've got basically 29 days to certify the local, and then the Secretary of State has another 15 before it's official.
Yeah.
So I've watched you speak a few times now, Bob, and I've gotten to know you here over the last couple of years. And I know how smart you are. And I know how in-depth your research is in what you do. You know, I think this comes from a background in the
Contracts and tort and stuff like that.
what you're dealing with employees, you're dealing with people, leadership. So this side, my problem with this entire ticket, this entire election cycle here in Shasta County, is that you have one side that's running as a ticket with each other. You know, where it's a sheriff, the DA, it's basically your establishment folks. And they're running on so-called experience. That's what they're saying. They say, well, we have the experience. These people are coming out of nowhere, and they're wanting to take jobs they're not qualified to do. And I would say, look, this is not the way the country runs. You know, we've never wanted to be a country or a society that had professional politicians, people that were really good at being politicians, you know. We want people like you, people like the others who are running, who we're going to see here later in the show, who have no interest in a political career, but they have all the interest in the Constitution and in maintaining a free society.
And helping my community. That's what we're here for. I think that's why you're all here. That's why you've been here for the last year, is trying to bring our community around. God bless you all.
And I think, thank you. And I think what we've done is we've created participants in the process, whether they're for us or against us or indifferent. There's people that are now politically active and are paying attention to what's going on in local politics. Never would have paid attention before, never cared before. And I'm one of those people. You know, I've been brought into this, you know, really as a person who wants to learn more about what's going on. And I think we're seeing people now who never paid attention to what's going on in local politics, who are now, you know, have an open ear and open eyes to what's happening. I think that's great. I think that's a lot to say about people like you who are saying, hey, you know what? I'm a retired guy. I could go spend time with my family, go travel and do things. Instead, you know, I'm wanting to run a campaign where I'm going to become the focus of attacks. You know, people are going to attack me personally, professionally. They're going to attack my record, my career, everything I've ever worked for, you know, and it's tough. So I commend you on that.
It's not much different than being a manager. As a manager, you got a target on your back, and you don't have friends.
Sure.
Not with the people you work with. You have friends outside the work.
Talk about your background a little bit. What'd you do for 44
Okay, I've been married 48 years to the same woman. She's my best friend, and it's interesting. I walked in today, and she's watching a podcast for an hour and a half on my interview. I about fell over when I came in the house because I was out putting up a sign somebody's place. It's like, wow. But she's watching that. She watched the entire hour and a half video. It's like, geez. And she said, that was great. But anyway, so I got involved with 48 years in power industry. The last 25 were in management. And I started off as just an operations supervisor, and ultimately I became a power plant manager. I got a power plant manager job given to me by my reputation.
Where was this, Bob?
This was in Houston, Texas. I was in Pasadena, Texas, building a plant. Mm-hmm. And I know the vice president and stuff of the company, and he knew where I came from. I used to work with Southern California Edison. He says, Mojave Generating Station? I says, yeah. We're going to build a power plant down there. Oh, okay. We talked about it a few times, never heard anything from him. Next thing you know, on a Saturday morning, I get a FedEx ring-a-ding on the door, and it's a job offer for plant manager to build the South Point Energy Center on the Mojave Indian Reservation by Needles, California in Arizona. It's like, wow. So as you know, probably, tribal lands are they're not associated with the states. They're tribal lands are Indian territory. They're sovereign territory.
Nation, yeah.
So there's no state law enforcement. There's nothing on it. So I'm building this power plant with an a boiler code. They're making code welds without somebody expecting in code welds.
Sure.
And air permitting. It's not the state's air permit. It's the the federal United States EPA Region 9 out of San Francisco that came down and did all my air permitting.
Wow.
OSHA. No, I'm so sorry. No Arizona OSHA here.
Yeah.
You know, you bring up Fed OSHA.
It sounds like a dreamland.
Okay,
Wait a second.
You mean you were able to build something without OSHA?
Whoa, yeah.
can't believe how that
And we
happened.
never got anybody hurt or injured, killed, you know. We were there for 6 years before I left, and nobody got hurt.
Wow.
And we had a couple of near misses.
Common sense is a hell of a thing.
Yeah, but that I did that the last, and then I went on back to Texas for a while and went into a Dow chemical plant as an asset manager. Mm-hmm. They built a large plant inside of a 27 square mile chemical plant down in Freeport, Texas, and built the plant in there. I was running out of warranty, and they said, "Hey, you want to come to Palmdale, California, and build a solar plant in Lancaster?"
Sure.
Okay. So I went in there as an asset manager, plant manager. We built a small demonstration plant. And it just on and on and on. Ultimately, I retired from PG&E after 6.5 years because I went into hydro first, operating a dispatch window from Bakersfield all the way to Feather River Canyon. All the hydro was dispatched from this one office in Fresno. And then somebody said, "Hey, I'm your second manager." It's like, I can't have two bosses. "Oh, you do?"
Yeah.
He says, "Yeah, you're going to build some renewable energy for us. You're going to build 150 million watt power of solar, and you're going to put 3 fuel cells in California State University." It's like, wow, really?
Yeah, it's a big undertaking.
So I did that. It was interesting, but I retired in 2017 and moved up here. So I'm glad to be here.
What brought you up here to Shasta County?
Family emergency up here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I lost a son-in-law up here and wanted to be up here with my daughters and granddaughters.
Okay.
And that was a great thing. I came out of Fresno, which you don't want to live in Fresno. It's a
I've been to
nice
Fresno.
place to drive through if you're doing 100 miles an hour, but you don't want to stop.
Well, we're glad you're here. Now, tell us about the campaign. How's it going? Tell us about your day-to-day activities, your operations. What's the day look like for you now on the campaign trail?
We're all scheduling ahead, trying to schedule a week ahead at least.
Yeah.
I think we're campaigning a little bit different than the opponents or the establishment. We're reaching outside of the Reading as well as, Reading is very important to us. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But we've been all over the county. We've been out from Fall River, MacArthur, all the way to I go to Happy Valley, Cottonwood a couple times. Shingletown, Shasta Lake City. We're going up to Bernie again here shortly, next week.
So when you're out there, you're talking to Mr. and Mrs. Smith up in Shingletown or wherever you're at in the rural parts of the county. What are you hearing from people? What are they telling you?
They're so grateful that we're out there.
Yeah.
It's like nobody ever comes out here. They don't pay attention to us. And then you start hearing their stories. I met Revenge's former secretary.
Oh, yeah.
How did I meet her? I was looking to put a sign up on an address, and they gave me the wrong address. Then they gave me the right address. I walked over there, and she came out of the house that's condemned that they live in because the county won't let them fix it. And it's like they can't fix anything in the house. They're living in a condemned house. And she started telling me the whole story of Shasta County. So it was really, it's just amazing.
I wanted to circle back to when Carlos was asking you to tell us about yourself, and I wanted to ask you about your experience with elections and your knowledge in that area, just so people
need to know that. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. 2018 primary election, I was with state of Jefferson of all that time. I'd only been here about 6 months, and I wasn't here probably 2 months, and I got snagged into that.
Yeah.
So somebody says, hey, you want to be part of Election Integrity Project California and be trained on election law and become an observer? It's like, sure. Yeah. Because, again, I'm a strong believer you get what you see. I remember as a kid, if you're in second or third grade in school, and boys will do what boys do, you can mess around and shoot spit wads at each other and whatever. But unless somebody's seeing you, it's not a problem. But if somebody's watching, then you better not do that.
Sure.
It's the same thing with elections. Elections are fine as long as you're observing. But if you're not watching, Katie bar the door, who knows what happens?
Sure.
So that went from myself, the first election and primary, and then it went to about 4 or 5 people for the off-year election in 2018. Then the 2020 election primary. It was probably up to about 30 people observing in Shasta County. And then the general election, there were about 60 people in the field, 50 to 60 people.
Yeah.
And they were all trained up in election code, and they were scheduled. Or they're doing ballot processing from the ballot comes in the door all the way to they're stored for 22 months. Then we got into Newsom. That was another 50 people working. And then we get District 2. The interesting thing in California, any citizen in California may observe the elections. They have the right to ask questions and expect answers. And if they don't get the answers, they can elevate it up to the register of voters or the county clerk if need be.
Okay.
And so
A lot of people don't know this.
they have no idea about that. But the biggest thing with this upcoming primary is we need observers. We need people in the polls. We need people watching ballot processing, everything, drop boxes. We need to look at those drop boxes when we see them. Just make sure they're not open, or disturbed anyway.
Sure.
So what a day as an observer, what does that look like?
Whatever you want it to be. It could be a couple hours or it could be all day, whatever you want to do. Or it could be in the middle of the night. You go look at a poll or a ballot drop box just to make sure nobody's
So is there a point in the process that is unobservable? From the time somebody goes in to vote to the time that ballot gets counted, is there any time where those ballots are somewhere a person can't have eyes on them or can't?
They're
They're
stored in the clerk's office in secured areas.
Okay.
I'll give you that. But they're not as secure as they should be. There was a big issue over the District 2 recall about putting tamper tape over the door that had all the ballots in there to be tabulated. And on the threat of being arrested, they were saying, oh, you got to leave right now or we're going to call the RPD and have you arrested. Go give us your best shot.
Sure. Those are my
But guess
ballots.
what? Guess what? They went ahead and they got tamper tape that they already had in the office.
Sure.
Signed on it and put it on the doors. And they started doing that now.
Sure.
So it's like you got to pull their bluff, call the bluff.
Yeah.
And I would not expect anything different when I'm in the office. If I'm doing something wrong or I can do something better, I expect that to be, let's have that
I
conversation.
think all these measures, especially when the suggestion comes from our side or people that are, constitutional, whatever you want to call it. I think a lot of the pushback is simply just a screw you. No, I'm not going to do that because you guys are asking us to. And we're not going to pander to you guys.
That's what that was.
It was a Pledge of Allegiance deal that just happened over the last couple of weeks, right? We're like, well, we're not going to say Pledge of Allegiance because they're politicized. They're making it something that's
Ultra MAGA
of their side, and they're stealing patriotism. I'm like, no, it's a Pledge of Allegiance. And when you take something as simple as that, if you can't pledge allegiance to this country, then you
There's
probably
a
should.
real problem.
Yeah, you could go somewhere else.
And you could tell during the recall by Kathy Darlene Allen's body language when she would have to come to the supervisors that she was not happy.
No, she wasn't very comfortable there at all, was she?
No.
She's really not comfortable now because you might take away my 5 years that I have till retirement. Well,
This
I'm
isn't about
sorry. It's
retirement.
not about
It's
your
not about
retirement.
pensions.
It's about who's going to do the best job.
It's not
Right.
about pensions. It's not about anybody's career. Let's get that straight. We're not here to protect anybody's career.
She's got 28 years with the county. She's got a pension already.
Sure.
Hey, and listen, I'm all for people like say some of our candidates that we're rooting for get in there. I don't want them to run unopposed in the next election, man. It's healthy to have
Opposition's great.
opposition.
It's great to have
Healthy competition.
somebody on their side. It's great. It's great to have political opposition, and I'm not opposed to that. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think
We missed two things. We have an auditor and an assessor that are unopposed on our ballot.
Yeah,
Shame on us.
Yeah.
We should have found somebody for those two positions.
yeah.
Didn't know it at the time, but it's sure very prevalent now. You see it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
So, how are you feeling about this this election?
I'm feeling great because I go out and I meet people and I meet patriots all over the place. It's amazing, and they just have a story. Everybody has a story to tell.
Sure.
I got one the other day, and she had the problem in the District 2 recall. Now she has it also in this primary. Her son and her daughter moved away from the home, out of the nest, if you will, 3 or 5 years ago. They're gone. They're moved. But she continues to get a ballot there. Is that right? And so it's like, wow, don't you think the voter rolls need to be worked on? Well, if you look at your voter guide at the bottom of page 1, it says, well, if you get this guide in error and this person's not at the home, can you just send this back to the clerk's office? Yeah, kindly. So let's put the monkey on the back of you, the resident, instead of on you, the clerk's office, to make sure the voter rolls are correct. Sure. That's a problem.
How do you track those? That's a lot of data. So
It's a challenge. There's 113,000 plus right now on the voter rolls in Shasta County.
How many people work in that office?
Pardon me?
How many people work in that office?
Approximately 20.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're all different. And that's a challenge too. Here's a problem. The only thing we have to verify ID right now is signature verifications.
So I want to tell you about I'll tell you a short story. I went to go vote. I moved and I registered to vote at my new address because I didn't want to it to be an illegitimate vote.
Right.
And this happened during the Modi recall, actually. And so I did it in 10 days before or something like that. And then I didn't get the ballot. And the easiest way is to take your ballot down there and say, here you go. But because I didn't have that, it didn't get sent to me because I registered at the new address. I went to where I was supposed to go. And when I went in there and they go, hey, I told them, hey, I live here, blah, blah, blah. They're like, well, here's the list. Find yourself. They handed me a list of maybe.
You weren't on it.
No, I was.
Was you?
I was on it, but what I'm saying is they gave me the list of all the freaking voters.
They wanted you to find it in the list instead of asking your name and your address.
They handed me a list and they said, find yourself. And I went through the pages and I'm like, it's alphabetical. So I'm like, oh, here I am right here. Oh, okay.
You could have
boom.
put anybody's name out.
I could have been, that's what I'm
that
was
would
my
everybody
problem.
have to show their ID when they go vote?
That's the best way. And what's interesting about that, in the board meeting, a certain supervisor asked Kathy Darling Allen about that. She was making a presentation on election integrity, and he asked her straight up, do you support voter ID? Government issued ID card. Sure. She says, no, there's no need for that. We're doing great with just signature verification. Well,
No.
here
My
we
signature
are.
changes
Fast
every couple of
forward
years.
now, probably 8-9 months, and now it's in a recent forum, which you were talking about the pledge issue, that same forum over there. She changed her mind and said, oh, yeah, I think that would be the best thing we could do is go back to voter ID.
You can't read a book without a
Imagine
freaking
that.
ID. You can't you're not even supposed to be out in public without an ID legally, which I'm not really for that. But all I'm saying is you got to have an ID for everything. But when it comes to voting, it's not important, which is probably the most important time. You should have a freaking ID.
Most voters in both parties believe I heard it was over
Exactly, over
80%.
So how does it become a racial deal where it's gotten to the point where people say, "What's racist to ask for ID?"
Oh man.
You know, what do we come to?
And minorities
You know,
get pissed when they hear
I
that.
have to have an ID for every single thing that I do. You just said it, John. So why not the most sacred process that we possibly partake in as Americans?
Do
Why not show
Peruvian Americans have a harder time getting IDs?
that? We have
'Cause
a
that's
special,
what I
we have a
heard.
special. It's upside down. We have a special ID.
Yes.
I got a question for you, Bob. So with everything you just said, I'm thinking, okay, what do we do, and what do our listeners do? What's the best way to vote to make sure my vote counts?
Because I want to close out with that really.
Okay.
So everybody has a vote by mail ballot by this time, or you should at least. With that said, yes, you can real easy. Well, not real easy. This is a very difficult ballot. I mean, there's 2 sheets front and back. A lot of contests. A lot of people I've never seen or heard before. It's funny. One of the ladies running for governor says her campaign statement is "F all politicians." And you you look at her Facebook page, and she is serious about this and this and this and this and this. And man, she's actually a patriot, but just she wasn't going to write a big 1,000-word document. And she says "F all politicians."
Wow,
It's
yeah.
like, wow,
Got my
that's
attention.
how frustrating.
There's something that happens, right, when people get elected to an office. Something happens where they didn't start off being crooked or corrupt or something, but something happens when they get into an office where
Power,
you know,
man.
yeah.
I got the power.
Yeah.
And so my whole thing is, don't put your ballot in a drop box. Worst thing you can possibly do.
Sure.
Boxes are not secured.
Go vote in
Don't
person if you
put
can.
your box or your ballot in the mail. You're going to talk to the post office, going to handle them, and then they're going to turn around and they're going to show up in the registrar's office, and there's going to be a minimum of 10 to 12 people who are going to touch your ballot, and it's going to go through the same software and Dominion software, either at the registrar's office or clerk's office, or whether it's at the poll. It's the same software. It's all
So
Dominion.
the most
and
secure
Chester.
way is to vote in person.
Most secure way is when we say vote in person means take your ballot either to the clerk's office or take your ballot to the precinct poll that you're assigned to, and they'll say, "Well, drop it right here in this slot." No, time out. I'm not going to drop it in the slot. I'm going to vote my ballot. And they may give you, "Oh, you can't vote that ballot because we don't know if you surrendered your vote by mail ballot already, but you can surrender that ballot and get a precinct ballot and fill it out." And then we'll write surrender on front back of your ballots that you brought in into the envelope, and take those, and then you can go vote
So
the
I have to
precinct.
bring in what I got in the mail, because I just got it in the mail last week. I need to bring that
You
with
need to
me.
bring the envelope and the ballot with you to the precinct poll. Tomorrow we're going to discuss whether we have poll books or iPads, basically, that are tied into the internet to the registrar's roll, the voter roll, live, so they can verify electronically at the polls to see if you have voted or not your vote by mail ballot.
Now, what happens to the person that got it in the mail and said, "I'm going to vote in person," tore it up, threw it in the garbage? I didn't do that, but
They can still
It
look you, they
happens.
can look you up.
yeah.
It happens. They can see if you have not voted. They can turn around and cancel your vote by mail ballot. They can turn that.
So those people that did that still show up and vote then.
still show up and vote. Now you may have a challenge because you don't have a ballot to surrender, but don't give up. You tell
They
them,
can
hey,
verify you with the phone number.
with a hotline they call
Yeah.
it. They can call it up and verify that. And when they verify that, they can turn your vote off remotely to where you can't do it up there, but you can vote in precinct poll.
So without checking ID though, because the thing is, they handed me going back to the story I was telling right before you started talking, was they handed me, "Oh, find yourself in here." Okay, I found myself, and I'm like, "This is me." Then they verified it on the phone.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, it was a little bit backwards
Interesting.
because I was like, "You guys don't need ID." They were like, "No."
Well, what I believe about Kathy Darlene Allen is if she remains in office, Shasta County will continue to use Dominion
Yes,
voting machines.
at least through 2025. Yeah.
And I believe she would never actually support showing an ID to vote. I don't believe that.
And she will never remove their ballot boxes. And I'm wanting to go back to one day voting on election day, not 29 days or early voting. I want to vote on election day and come in person and vote your ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to get integrity back here and get people off the Dominion voting machines. They're gone. I'm already talking to the board of supervisors right now that are in office about that very thing, and I've got ideas on what machines that I'm going to be looking at.
Perfect.
But
Good.
you got to get rid of them. We want to heal this county. We don't want to tear our county apart. And
it's
every time
crazy.
we have Dominion in here, it's more sore spots.
It's crazy how much control the county has too. That's a very
Yes.
cool thing,
Yes.
refreshing thing to hear. That you'll be able to make a
Use that
difference.
excuse, well, it's the state, because I think a lot of this blame gets put on the shoulders of the state. Where, yeah, listen, they're all screwed up.
easy
and
to
we know
pass it
that,
off down the
you know,
road.
but
Yeah.
we can definitely control what we do here in Shasta
There's
County.
35 counties in the state of California that already vote on election day. That's the only day they vote. One day a year for elections. That's it. Why don't we have?
That's the
one day?
majority. So.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what we grew up with.
Yeah.
Come on, let's be
Well,
honest.
Bob, we appreciate you being here. We're coming to the end of our time here.
Yep.
We're in the middle of a marathon. If you're watching, we appreciate you guys staying with us. Grab a cold one, grab some food, grab whatever you got to grab, but continue to tune in. The phone number is on the screen. Feel free to call in, ask questions, give your commentary. Even if you're on the other side, you know, we'd love to hear from you. I mean, this is for all people. We're not just in
How
an
long-
echo chamber here. We want to hear what people have to say in the county.
How long are we staying on here tonight?
3 hours.
We're here for 3 hours till 9:30.
Yeah, we'll be here until
get your
9:30,
coffee, get your rock star Woody.
Heck yeah, man.
6 different-
Bob, thank you. We look forward
Thanks.
to you being
Thanks.
our
It's
new
Paul
rock star.
Singer for County Clerk.
Absolutely.
Shasta County Clerk 2022. Thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate you. We're back on this
Right
marathon
on.
night of our 50th episode, 1 year anniversary. This is awesome. I mean, the energy is electric.
Yeah.
We're out there in the waiting room. We're eating. We're having a good time. And I'll tell you, we are fired up.
Yeah.
And this county is worth being fired up about. And I'll tell you, if you're not involved, get involved, because what's happening in Shasta County is at the epicenter of a big change that's coming towards the rest of the country, really. And this is an amazing thing. And Woody, I'm going to let you introduce our guests since you were so good at it the first time.
Okay. So we got Chris Kelstrom from Cottonwood, California, and he's running for District 5 Supervisor. I've known Chris for over 20 years. We've had a lot of fun over the years talking politics, and so I'm really excited to have you today.
Thank you.
I never thought you'd run for any political office. I do got to say that.
Yeah, well,
That surprises me.
Yeah.
As much as you like to hunt and do recreate, all that's out the window now.
pretty
if you
much,
get
yeah.
back to
Like
this.
I was in your
Your
barber
life
shop.
is over, dude.
I know.
As you knew it.
Get nice and close to that
All right.
mic. Yeah.
But listen, Chris, we've been following you, been tracking your campaign, since the beginning. I think yours was one of the first campaigns. Was one of the first campaigns here.
Barron was actually out quite a few months before me, yeah. But
but your race. I'm sorry,
Right.
Your race was one of the first ones to get off the ground. And it's once been so closely watched. District 5 is right now supervised by Les Baugh. He's retiring, so that opens up a vacancy. And now here we are. And if you haven't been watching this race, it's a really interesting one. It's one that to me it's pretty cool because it's Cottonwood, right? I mean, Cottonwood is a big part of what's happened here over the last couple of years. It's been at the center of attention as far as freedom goes, as far as patriotism goes, constitutionalism. So you're representing not only your county and your district, but Cottonwood, California, which is a cool thing,
Yeah, what's it goes what? Happy Valley, Cottonwood.
Can you guys pull a map up of the
In Anderson,
Shasta
yeah.
County districts?
Yeah.
Let's
So-
pull it up.
So Chris, tell us. The question is why. That's a simple question. Is why you're running. What do you see as the biggest singular reason?
well, I mean, I just I'm sick of politicians. Like I say, I was in a barbershop the other day and somebody said it's a politician. I'm like, don't call me that word, So
That's dirty.
Those are fighting words right
Make it
there.
Very clear. This is not the start of my political career. I mean, this is my civic duty that I feel is my civic duty to go in there, get some things done, get some things changed. I was at, I don't know, whatever. I'm at a different meeting every night, it seems like. So it was Republican Women's something or other or whatever. And, there, I told him, I said, 4 years ago, and I called out Les Baugh in Cottonwood. 4 years ago, the only concern we had at that time was jail beds. That was it. That was number one on everybody's mind. And here it is 6 months before an election. And, by golly, he's got 90 beds over here. The juvenile hall has 90 beds that are better than the adult beds, and we can take those. And then when the new courthouse is built, we can get these other 50 beds over here. And when we move the kitchen out of the basement, we got another 40 beds there. And we've got 40 here and 50 here and on and on and on. And it's like, it was my turn to speak as a crowd member. Yeah. And I said, that's all we've heard for the last 4 years is AB 109 and Prop 47, Prop 57, jail's full, 90% capacity, revolving door, jail's full, nothing we can do, jail's full. I said, that's all we've heard. And I said, now all of a sudden, 6 months before an election, you've got 90 beds over here and 40 beds over here and 50 beds over here. But none of those beds are ready before the election. Sure. But vote for you because you have a plan. Sure. And he didn't take it real well. He was a little angry. And I think his next point was, well, if you'd come to our meetings. And I said, well, that's another thing. I said, your meetings are at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday.
I work for a living.
Exactly. That's exactly what I said. I work for a living. I'm the guy that pays all the bills. And you have your meetings. I can't go there. So that was kind of like, I was just sick and tired of the whole politics. And I said this the other night at the Republican Women's Convention. It's 4 years ago. Jail beds is number one concern. Here we all are here tonight, and all the candidates were there. And I said, and number one concern is jail beds. And it's like,
why is that so important? Because that's a hot topic issue.
That leads to everything. That leads to everything. That's the jail beds. I mean, you can't give mental health service to somebody that's high on drugs and just looking for the next fix without getting them in some sort of facility, get them locked down, get them cleaned out, and then offering them help at that time. So, it affects mental health. It affects everything. Our crime, our way of life. I mean, everything comes down to jail beds. There's no punishment for crime. There's no crime and punishment. It's just crime. Sure. And let them go. And again, it's like politicians have been in charge for decades now, and we have all the same problems. Every 3.5 years they come up again, and somebody's going to fix them. Somebody has a plan, and then you don't hear for 3.5 more years until the next election. So it's like it's time to go in there and fix some things.
Yep. So this is a new redrawn district lines here. So yeah, District 5, you're going all the way up to Shingletown. It's a pretty rural part of the county, right? I mean,
Goes pretty far east.
yeah, all the way up to.
Yeah, if you live deep in
Lassen.
Cottonwood, you're not in District 5, you're in Tehama.
So it's funny. I think I'm actually right on the edge. I think if I lived across the street, I would be.
Yeah, it used to be you were.
Well, the town of Cottonwood is in Shasta County.
Well,
South of the creek is Bowman Road.
Well, I think now I'm deep into 3 now, but I think before the
Yeah.
district was.
Yeah, and it's
split
interesting how they did that too, and it just once again shows you typical politics and politicians. You know, we had a redistricting. 2020 census came out. We had the numbers in 2021. They were compiled, and District 2 needed more people added to it, and District 5 had too many people in it. So instead of just moving one of these little lines there, you know, a few inches here and there, whatever. They spent weeks and weeks. Each supervisor had a representative and register of voters office, and they had public comment. And they spent 12 weeks, and they came up with 2 plans. And then Leonard Modi took it under advisory. We'll take it under advisory and tweak it a little bit. Well, he was under recall at the time, so. Two people running against him were in Happy Valley, so Happy Valley got moved out of his district.
Sure.
Dale Ball was running against him. His road got cut in half. The half Dale lived on is no longer in the district, and the other half still is. I mean, and they just kind of went through there. Turn Creek Bottom never really cared for Les Ball a whole lot, so they removed that out of his district. Happy Valley never voted for Modi anyway, so they removed that out of his district. Mary Rickard made a comment one time during a Board of Supervisors meeting that she doesn't live in her district. She lives at another ranch in Les Ball's district, and lo and behold, the lines moved just enough that her other ranch got moved into her district.
Right in, there you
It was total coincidence, I'm sure. But Jones Valley Water and Bella Vista Water have had water issues for decades now. I mean, problems. I mean, now everybody's having water issues, but they've had water issues forever.
Gerrymandering, yeah.
So those got moved over to Patrick Jones' district. I mean, it was just like, let's just take this little gerrymandering thing. What do you guys want?
Sure. So it's impossible to talk about the importance of Shasta County politics without understanding or having some kind of a knowledge about what's going on the national level. And let's face it, it's a shit show. You know, what's going on the national level, I don't think there's anybody right now that lives around here that says, hey, I like what's happening nationally. I like the way that I'm being represented on the national level. It's just not happening. Things are going the wrong way. So why is it so important now for us in Shasta County to pay attention in our own home here locally? Why is it so important for us to be participatory? Why is it important to know who's running, get behind a good candidate? And it's because we have an opportunity right now, the way I see it, to isolate and insulate ourselves from what's going on in the rest of the world. And we can actually do it because so often the buck gets passed and say, well, that's just the state's fault. Well, we can't do anything about it. It's Newsom. Or, oh, you know what? That's the federal government. There's nothing we can do. That's beyond our control. But how do we get control here locally?
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, first of all, you got to have people that are representing you that will take credit and take control and the buck stops here type of deal, rather than passing the buck. And we have a lot of that, a quick story. We went lunch one day and then went down to Trinity Center, and there's a winery down there that I happen to know the guys on the Board of Supervisors there. And it was during the pandemic, and I happened to be with a school administrator. And so I go in there, and I love unfiltered narrative or unfiltered talk from somebody that doesn't know, just to hear how people think. And so I said, oh, are you still on the board? And he said, yeah. And I said, oh, that's cool. And how's that going? He says, well, better in Shasta County. And I said, oh, yeah, well, what do you think about that? And he has no idea that I'm involved in the recall, that I'm thinking of running for supervisor. I mean, he doesn't know. He just knows me that I used to get wine there for functions in the past. So he kind of let his guard down. He says, well, he says, a lot of it isn't the supervisor's fault. And I said, oh, really? He says, yeah, a lot of it comes out of the health department. I mean, they make the mandates. They're the ones that are, shutting down the businesses and this and that and da-da-da. And he says, the board of supervisors really don't have anything to do with it. And I said, but...
It's funny because they just fired their boss.
Yeah, and I said, well, can't they hire and fire, the head of the Health and Human Services or health director? And he says, well, yeah. And I go, well, so they're kind of her boss or his boss. And well, yeah. And I go, so they kind of do have a little say in it, don't they? Well, yeah. But then he kind of switched gears and says, well,
the buck.
Yeah. He says, exactly. And he says, well, the schools, the schools don't have anything to do with it. I mean, that comes from the state and feds, and they make the
then
rules.
Why even have officials here locally? Why even have people represent us here?
Well, once again, it was pointed out, by the school administrator I was with, that she says, well, no, the schools base theirs off the health department's recommendations and, the Rancho document in Shasta County.
It's all connected.
Exactly. But my point was, it was like typical politician. None of this is my fault.
Yeah, no, it's not
I can't do anything. It's not my fault.
Like when I go yell at the kids,
state,
who left the dishes in the sink. Everybody goes like this,
Yeah. So,
well,
Hey,
I think we have a caller.
Real quick, I think we have a question. Yeah, Terry.
I got it.
Terry. Go ahead.
Welcome to Family Radio. Okay, well, we're going to keep talking until you guys give us a thumbs up that we have somebody on the line.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, I got you now, Terry. What's happening, Terry Raposa?
Hey, how you doing? Listen, I wanted to ask Chris, there's something that's been unique about every ad he's done, and that is with every ad, there's 30 seconds of a solution to a problem. You've talked about fire. You've talked about water. I'd like it if you could go ahead and expound on those things, each one of those different issues, briefly, like your solution for water, your idea of what's going on as far as BLM and how we can control that with an ordinance. Also about the jail. And the other thing I think that really is important is the fact that you want people to go in and feel comfortable when they want to work with the county, when people want permits and things like that. I'd like to hear you talk about those things, if you would.
Those great questions there, Terry. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the fire one is kind of funny because I was listening to my commercial had come on, and then my opponent's commercial come on, and the opponent's commercial was kind of like, hey, wildfire's bad, and I want to help you guys, and I'm there with you, and we vote for me, and we'll help these wildfires or whatever. And it's like, well, how is there a how there? Is there something you can do? So yeah, that particular subject, fire, I used to do a lot of hunting up above Shasta Lake towards Dunsmuir and over to McLeod, and it's checkerboarded in there. Every other square mile is private property, Sierra Pacific, or it's National Forest land. And the trick was we had to find a spot on National Forest land where we could set up a camp, because you can't camp on Sierra Pacific land. And let me tell you, we spent weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks in there hunting. It was
How's a guy like you hide in the woods?
Yeah, well, yeah. I look like a tree, so I have had birds land in my hair. But anyhow, but the trick was the National Forest land. You couldn't even pull a truck off the side of the road, let alone put a tent up or whatever. It was just so thick and overgrown and just dead wood everywhere. It was just horrible. And of course, you didn't bother hunting there because it was terribly out of order and just in bad shape. Sierra Pacific land was thin. It had log landings. It had clear cuts. It had places you could pull off, but you couldn't camp there. So I looked at that, and then of course it all burned in the Delta fire, and I'm thinking, when that burned, I tell you what, that the National Forest land was like kindlings next to that Sierra Pacific land. And so I'm thinking, hey, the federal government has all these dollars. We all beg them to come and give us relief after we have a big giant forest fire. Let's get them to come in here first and clear some of their property. Thousand Lakes Wilderness area up there above Shingletown, the same thing. I hunted in there before too, and you can't even hardly walk in there.
Sure.
It's just so thick and overgrown and ridiculous. And I talked to a forester in Trinity County, a retired one, and he said that they did it in Trinity County. And if you write an ordinance that says you have to have so many metric tons per acre, and it has to be thinned to this specific, metric ton per acre, then the federal government will curtail their plans to try to fit within your ordinance. So I want to write that ordinance. I want to get the federal government in there. And again, I don't want to do private landowners. I want to encourage them, but I don't want to force them. I don't want old lady Miss Johnson, Widow Johnson, to have to go out there and spend $10,000 to clear a couple trees off her land because code enforcement is all over her. That I don't want to do. So I don't want to burden the private landowner. I want to encourage them, but there's tons and tons, millions of dollars, billions of dollars worth of fire prevention grants out there. So for the private people, private landowners, we can get those grants, try to get those grants while we got the crews up there clearing the national forest and getting that mess cleaned up. So my thing is let's get the federal government to spend the money to prevent a wildfire rather than beg for money after we have one.
And now the other issue that's huge right now, especially in your district, is we're talking about ACID water being cut down now to 3%. What say you to these farmers or ranchers out there who are trying to make a living raising cattle? What's it look like for them? What can we do to mitigate this?
Well, I think Woody should chime in on that because I know he's.
Yeah,
we were out at your place and you were like cut off from water and you have this big giant ranch. Maybe.
I'm one of the ones that lost all their irrigation. I was at the last ACID meeting and saw Chris there, but I think people need to know. We've talked about food shortages, and in California alone, they said at that meeting 450,000 acres of ag land in California aren't getting their water. So just under 500,000 acres. And California feeds a lot of America.
It's a breadbasket.
Yeah. So,
And this is another area where people need to get involved. I mean, I was up on the Shasta Dam in 2014 protesting that they had just cut off 100% of the irrigation water for the city of Corning, or the agricultural irrigation water for the city of Corning. They just cut that off. They got zero water. They had to pump it all out of their wells. They were getting no ag water at all in Corning in 2014. Yet they were getting ready to run these pulses down the river to encourage the fish to come up.
Sure.
And, so we were up there protesting, but there was 50 of us up there, but I mean, there should have been 50,000 of us up there. And that's where, it's just like this COVID thing. They kind of overstepped their bounds. They went a little too far, and they got a whole bunch of us involved. I've been involved for a while, but more and more people need to get involved. Now the ranchers and stuff and the farmers, it's like, I didn't see you guys there in 2014.
Sure.
And we've let this fish. They found lawyers, and the lawyers sued. There's a little cottage industry that you sue the federal government. The federal government pays you to sue them.
Oh, yeah.
And environmentalists have taken they've taken full credit for that. I mean, they have a handle on that. They'll sue and sue and sue, knowing that they're going to get paid whether they win or lose. So it's time for ranchers and farmers and citizens to start suing too.
It doesn't make sense to me when it's raining. We have this giant dam. We have the lake that's not even full, and then you're sending it out full blown, just overflowing. The was overflowing when we should have been storing that water, man. And
or making new dams.
I'm not an expert on how all this water management stuff goes, but just logically thinking, as an average person that is out there that has been around the Sacramento River for
how many gallons go into the ocean?
30 something years.
I've been asking this,
and I'm like, why are they just dumping it all down the river when everything's getting rained on? The river's overflowing, and they should be filling up the freaking lake so we can use that when we actually need it.
Well, here's a stat for you that I just found out about. There's been 22 years since ACID was formed that we got less rainfall than we did this year, and we never lost our water.
Interesting.
And we lost it all.
I mean, a big question: are they doing this by design? Are they want a food shortage?
I think they are, but
by design.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason you have drought controls, and the government, the state government has a lot more control over the people with drought controls. If you remember right, we were coming out of the drought. The water's literally going over the top of Oroville Dam, and he would not end the drought. I mean, the people at the dam were like, we're under drought control. We can't release water, but we need to release water like really quick now. And it was very last minute before he would declare that the drought was over. My understanding is 110% snowpack right now.
Yeah,
110%. I just drove over the lake this weekend,
which is what really drives the water. I mean, we need that snowpack.
Yeah, and the lake is low, no question about it. But it was lower last year at this time, and we had water in the ACID canal. And there wasn't as much snow up in the mountains last year as there is this year. So.
So what can you do as supervisor? What do you? Because there's a lot of powers pulling on water rights.
Very few people control the water.
Yeah, and I mean, it's federal government. Federal Bureau of Reclamation is the one that ended up saying you're not getting any water. So they're the ones that control the water behind Shasta Dam. But as a supervisor, we can certainly sue. We can file a lawsuit on behalf of ranchers, not Woody because he's in Tame County, but other ranchers on the Shasta side. But we can file a lawsuit, and try to get an injunction. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if we were able to get an injunction or not.
But we got to try.
We got to try something.
We got to fight the fight. We can't just lay down and say, well, there's not much we can do about it. There's always something that we can do.
Yeah.
Even if it comes down to manually going, putting the dang deal, I don't know. But at some point, it's going to come to a serious battle.
Well, and water rights. I heard a story about water rights.
Nothing's more important.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and I heard a story about water rights where it was established up towards Viola by the old rancher blowing up the dam. He'd go down there back 1800s or whatever, and he'd blow it up.
Yeah.
And then they finally took it and settled it and got it written. Said, don't take that guy's water. You can't do it. And it was illegal. He's like, this is my land and everything. So this stuff has a deep, deep history.
Oh, yeah.
And it's wild. I mean, you figure it's, exactly. It's that level of intensity.
I'm going to tell you right now, they'll never take our water again.
Yeah.
After this year, I promise you that.
Sure. Yeah.
It's never going to happen again.
Yeah.
So. Let's switch gears real quick and talk about this campaign. It's really important for the people listening, for us to know what's going on, what it looks like out there on the streets of Shasta County, out in the roads and towns and villages.
I probably had a dozen people come up to me today and go, hey, dude, I voted for you. I sent my thing and I voted for you. And I just had a guy out on the sidewalk when I was waiting to get in here going, hey, dude, you got my vote. So
awesome.
It seems to be going really good. Right now, it's kind of a coast because, historically, before COVID, 85% of the people in Shasta County voted absentee.
Sure.
So, a month before actual election day, 85% of the people voted from a month to up to election day. So you're only talking to 15% of the people, the night before election day.
Yeah.
Now with COVID, everybody gets a mailed ballot. Every single person gets a mailed ballot.
Yeah.
So now I think on the Modi recall is about 93% that voted by mail, and only 7% showed up. So I would expect about the same thing this time.
But if you look at the margins that elections are won by here locally, it's usually a small margin. So it's important for people who are out there that if you have not voted, vote. If you feel like people have already voted, 90% of people are already done, said their word, well, show up to the ballot box.
It'll be a small percentage. There's no governor, there's no senator, there's no president or whatever. So it'll be a small turnout. I mean, so every vote counts. I mean,
absolutely.
big time,
so
and more so this time.
What's your feeling? What are you seeing out there?
I feel good. I mean, I honestly think if there's anybody that has a chance to win 50% plus one in June, it's me. I have a feeling with 5 people in the race, it probably won't happen. Let's put it this way. I didn't think it was going to happen for the last 6 months. I figured there's no way I'll get 50% in June. And now, actually, in the last month, I felt more confident that I have a chance of getting 50% in June than anybody else in the race. So
fantastic. Now, did I hear Colt Roberts dropped out to support you? Did I hear that?
No,
he did not. I thought I read something about that.
No, but if nobody gets the 50% plus one in June, then the top 2 move on. And I'm sure if Colt's going to support anybody, if
we've already had that discussion.
Exactly.
Sure. And listen, we love Colt Roberts
Absolutely.
here. I mean, we're fans, we're friends, personal friends, and I commend the young man for doing what he's done.
He's our future.
We need people like that. We need people who are going to step up and just run on principle. Anything that I would say here, I would say, to him, he's not going to win.
Well, I've said to him,
it's just not his time right now. It doesn't mean that he's not capable of doing the job, and that he'd do a good job. I believe he would.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's his time right now.
I told him the other night on the phone, I said, by the way, you're in charge of my next 2 fundraisers. It'll be because of you that I'll have to go to November.
That's right. We need to talk about Barron Browning. We need to talk about your opponent here, Full disclosure, I like Barron. I like Barron. He's a friend of mine, I work with Barron a lot on events, and he's a great guy. I believe he's a good American. He's a Marine. I like the guy a lot. So what say you to the person who says, hey, we have 2 really good candidates here. What is the difference between you?
I mean, honestly, the biggest difference is who funds us. That's pretty much the biggest difference. And I've done radio commercials on that. I've yet to accept special interest money. I mean, I'm not out there, I was told, you should go to talk to the casino. And I said, I've actually stayed away from special interest money. I don't really want any money. Well, you don't have to take their money. You're going to put their signs on their place. Okay, well, they do have good sign locations, no question about it. But as it is, I'm out of big signs now. All my big signs are out and called for. So it's like, and nothing against the casino, but I don't want to be beholden to anybody. And that's one of the things I'm proudest of is if you look at my campaign contributors, I don't have a single $4,900 campaign contribution, not one. There's not one single maximum donor on my entire page. And if you look at it, you'll see names you'll recognize, $300 here and $400 here. And usually they bought a table at one of my fundraisers, or they bought something live auction at a fundraiser or whatever. So, and
it's not to say that the casino's not important. I mean, the Rancheria vote here is really important, and I think those are people that we can have a relationship with. I think there's some great Americans in that tribe who want to see the county progress.
There's some big money coming out from another casino into this race.
There sure is.
$100,000 from
I think we know
County.
why.
From Tehama County Nomalaki Indians is into this race. It's not on our side either. It's just throwing it out there.
100%.
So
I heard it's up to 200,000 now.
I know SPI has a couple 100,000 in there. Yeah. So there's some big money coming in here.
We got about a minute left. We got about a minute left, you guys. We better close it out and get ready for the next guest. Just throwing it out there. We got to.
So, Chris, give us your closing statement. What do you want people out there to know if they don't already know you by now? What do they need to know?
Well,
Rebecca on the drought and water resources.
Oh, we got a question.
Okay.
Rebecca, she's coming on the line.
All right.
Rebecca, are you with us?
Rebecca.
We cannot hear Rebecca. We need to turn it up a little bit.
No, she's not there.
Okay, well, Chris, let's go ahead and continue. And
I just want to say one thing real quick. The difference between my perception, the difference between Chris and Barron Browning is, and I think Barron Browning's a good guy too, but I think he leans more towards believing that the government is the solution to all problems and Chris leans more towards
Government is your
oftentimes the
problem.
government is a problem, you know. So that's two different philosophies.
Sure. And my issue, not with Barron personally, more with that side, is that they're running it as a complete ticket. It's like you buy one, you get four, you know,
Yeah.
type of deal.
Okay, we
And
got
I
our
don't like
caller.
that.
Okay,
I
we
want
got the
people to see people run on their own
caller is
2
on
feet.
now.
Caller?
Rebecca, are you there?
That just sounded like a hangout.
Nope. I think we lost her.
Huh?
There's,
Oh, there she
Yeah, I'm
is.
here.
Rebecca.
Am I on?
You're
Yes,
on.
you're on.
Go
Hi,
ahead.
guys.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good, great.
Good.
What's your question?
I wanted to say that, and I don't want to go into too many specifics because I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but one time when I was crossing over the dam, I spoke with one of the security guards about how last year, I know, John, you said you noticed it. I noticed it. I felt like I was the only one. It was so frustrating to watch them just drain our lake last year, and the river was just flooding. And I kept saying, what is going on? But no one seemed to really notice. And so I talked to a security guard a couple months ago about it. And this person who said they have a top security clearance, when the Department of Defense came in a few months ago requesting an entire tour of our dam, he was, his detail. And when that started happening last year, he said he went immediately to the controller and was like, what are you doing? And I don't know what the rates were because I don't know their jargon, but he said it was an incredible amount that he's never seen them release like that before. And the controller told him, I can't tell you. He said, what do you mean I have top security clearance? Because I was told I can't tell anyone.
Yeah, I talked
And
to
so
security.
I thought that was interesting.
Wow.
I talked to a security guard that works there at nights, and he told me the same story. Because I don't care what they tell you. I heard them releasing water in the middle of the night. I heard it myself. I saw it myself. They were doing it all night long.
Yeah.
So
Accountability.
It's called Agenda 21 or Agenda 2030, they call it now. And and we're under attack. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's, the food shortages or the crisis of the shipping containers being left out out from the port. It doesn't matter if we're looking at attack in the school. I mean, this is a full out blown attack on everything that we believe in as good human beings, and I think it's by design. I can't prove it, but I agree with your suspicions.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Rebecca,
Thanks,
for that.
Rebecca.
Appreciate it.
So we have about a minute here to wrap up, Chris. We thank you for coming on. And listen, we're excited about what's happening, and I know you're excited about it. I see you everywhere, and this is a great thing. This is a mark of somebody that wants to work hard for us, wants to do what's good for the county, So for people out there thinking that the Red, White, and Blueprint, the Patriot movement, constitutionalists, whatever you want to call them, are here to tear this county apart, we're really not. We don't wake up in the morning and think, how can we destroy this county? We
Take it
all
back.
work very, very hard, very diligently to make sure that we include as many people as possible, to people understand what we're after, what we want, and that's simply one thing. It's to uphold the Constitution, and that's it. So if we can get people in office here locally that can do that for us, I think we're going to make great strides here in Shasta
we,
County.
the people, are supposed to run everything.
Yeah.
Elected supervisors are supposed to answer to we, the people. They're
And
supposed
you're not
to be
looking for a pension.
representative.
You're not looking for retirement.
No, I won't take any of that. I'll turn all that down. Yeah.
Well, and that is a good point. Chris is at. It's like, since I've been more involved, it's like, oh, there's Chris again. Oh, there's Chris. He's been plugged in. So to say not
you
experienced.
can't miss the guy.
No, you can't miss him. But besides that fact, I wasn't going there. He shows up, and I think that's what we'll see.
Well, Chris,
Well, he's
you have
in the
great
seat.
character, man.
So,
I call you a
appreciate
friend,
it.
and we appreciate everything that you've done thus far, and we look forward to seeing what you're going to do for the
thanks
county
for
in the
coming.
future.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Pretty
Thanks,
cool.
Chris.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Guys, we're going to take another little break here in this marathon of the
2
50th
minutes,
episode.
minute and a half, something like that. We're
Super fast.
Stay with us. Get on your phones and call. We're going to talk to you.
head for this episode.
Sweet.
Hey.
We're here.
Okay, guys, we're back. And it's marathon night, 3 hours. We're in. It goes fast. These 30-minute episodes go real fast.
Did radio this morning for an hour, and it seemed like 10 minutes.
And there's never enough time.
Right.
You know, I just got word that we've had over 2,000 viewers as the night's gone on. So if you're watching this, go ahead and share it. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and tell your friends. Pick up the phone, call us. This has been awesome. The energy's electric. It's fun.
Heck yeah.
We got a lot to talk about. We have Mr. John Green here, running for sheriff of Shasta County.
Thank you. Pleasure being here
Arguably
again.
the most important position in the county.
Correct.
Tell us why, John.
Because that's the first line of defense between we the people and the government.
Sure.
And my job there is to protect the people, not so much from the Constitution or protect the Constitution. That's the Supreme Court's deal. But I'm to protect the people from people who want to violate the Constitution.
So tell us about yourself. Tell us about why you're in this race. You're retired?
I am. I retired in 2017, so about 5 years ago.
So you could be golfing every day. Instead, you're choosing to do this.
I am. I did it. I retired early to run against Tom Basenko. I couldn't stand the way the department was going at the time, and I'd had several conversations with him and the undersheriff at the time and had some ideas on how to change things, and it just fell on deaf ears. So I said, hey, check this out. I'm going to retire. And I could have gone 3 more years. I could
Got a bigger pension.
rode off into the sunset.
Sure.
But
It seemed like he just wanted to go along with whatever the Fed said, like he was.
yeah, it was just not going good. There was a lot of dissension in the ranks, and I wanted to be that cohesive connection to bring everybody back together and focus on what our job was, to serve the people, And so I made it that day. I made a decision. I said, hey, I'm retiring in 3 weeks. Instead of a 2-week notice, I'll give you a 3-week notice, and I'll see you next year.
Sure.
Turned around, walked out the door, retired 3 weeks later. And
it was a hell of a race. I voted for you.
It was. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah.
And at that time, the Deputies Association supported you in that.
They did, and I'm glad you brought that up because I'd like to talk about that a little bit too.
I knew that was going to come up.
So yeah.
So let's talk about it.
So my opponent is touting a unanimous endorsement from the Deputy Sheriff's Association. So the last time when we went when I went to get endorsement, they did it right. I got in front of an entire membership meeting, and so did Tom Basenko. We professed our case to him, and then they held a candidate night, and it was Cinco de Mayo last time when we had that, and so I wanted to do the same thing. So I requested to go talk to the board first, because you got to go through the board. I was on that board for about 3/4 of my career over the years. So you request the board to get on the agenda for the next meeting. And so I went to the board meeting, and they had invited the general membership, like, oh, they're always invited, so let's do it. Well, I had 4 board members and about 6 or 7 membership members out of almost 100.
Sure.
Right. So I got to talk to about 12 people that night. I hadn't been prepared to give my platform. I just wanted to get on the agenda for the next meeting. So I called or texted the president and said, hey, I don't think you guys quite understood. Here's what I want to do. I want to talk to membership. So I got a call a week later, said, yeah, you're right. We're holding a special membership meeting, and this is in February now. So I go to that. I again have the same board members, 1 or 2 other board members, and another handful of some of the same people that showed up the first time. So now in total, I've talked to the board and about 20 members of the association out of over 100, right? Give them my spiel and left, and then a week later they called me, and this was even before the filing was done, right? They didn't know who was running for sheriff. I had just filed, and Johnson had filed earlier, and but it was still open, and there were rumors that some other people, maybe some of the command staff, were going to run for sheriff as well. So they called me, hey, we just decided to endorse Johnson. I'm like, really? No debate? No, we're not interested in that. I'm like, okay, well, that's unfortunate, but thank you.
Well, it tells its own story.
And so I still have a lot of friends and contacts in the agency, like you would after building up 27-year relationship with a lot of people. And so I was told that basically it was about 20 members that voted. So you got 20%, a unanimous 20% apparently. So
interesting.
And
there's something really interesting that's happened in politics with regard to sheriff's elections in California. And I think this is a trend. I don't think we're ever going to see another elected sheriff, in California if this trend continues, which is what you're trying to break, in that a person runs, knowing they're not going to fulfill their obligation or 4-year term. They hand it off to their number 2 or whoever they deem to be the next guy, their successor. Yep. and then that person becomes the incumbent. And in California, an incumbent sheriff has a 97% chance of winning a race.
Right.
You know, so we see this perpetual motion that I don't think is healthy. You know,
It's not, and it gives, quite honestly, an unfair advantage, especially with somebody like Mr. Johnson, who's been in there 8-9 months now, and now he's the incumbent. You know, and the same thing when Tomasico announced his retirement 10 months into the term he won, we all knew it. I told people, but it's not a campaign thing. I ran a clean campaign. I still do. Yeah. You know, you can't go off rumor and speculation, but it was pretty well known that he was going to retire and turn it off. So when I heard turn it over, so when I heard that, I went to a board meeting. It was I don't know, the end of October, November of 19, and I got up because they were going to appoint Eric McGreedy at that time with just, hey, here you go. Yeah. And so I stood up and go, hey, hello. I had 22,000 votes, or 21,293, I think was the official count. Sure. And I said, if you're going to appoint anybody, listen to the
rightful
people.
Guy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Appoint me. You know,
that was an argument we made, you know, at that time.
Right.
And it was irrespective of how we felt personally about Mike Johnson. You know,
I could have thought Eric McGreedy, the very first one.
Okay.
Yeah, the very first one.
Got it.
So,
but fast forward then.
And then fast forward when Eric resigned and went over to the CAO's office to the newly created position for him. You know, and my opponents also said, hey, I competed for that job. That job was never flown. There was, I think, one other gentleman. I didn't know about it, that it was coming until the day he said he was resigning, you know. And that was, I believe, in June sometime. And, you know, and then the rumor was, hey, they've already approached Michael Johnson and asked him to step in as sheriff and, you know, promised him a year highest salary, retirement year, and a year and a half guaranteed. And so basically it was a win-win for him to take the job. You know?
And now listen, we're going to be very, very honest at this table. You know, I like Mike Johnson. He's a friend of mine. You know, I consider him a friend. But I would say whatever to his face that I'm going to say right here at this table, because I have some serious, you know, concerns about things that are going on right now in the county. You know, I mentioned this earlier in the last segment that my concern with this ticket is that they're running it as a ticket. So you have somebody like Mike Johnson supporting Stephanie Bridget, you know, which is a big concern for me personally.
I have a big problem with that one too.
And so to me, it's like, why can't you run? Mike, you would have been fine running on your own 2 feet, on your own merit, on your own experience, you know, and the things that you want to say without having to endorse somebody like Stephanie Bridget, you know? So why is that happening? You know, why is it that you can tell me as a friend, hey, what they did to you was political bullshit, but then you turn around, you're supporting this person, you know, and you're with it. So and again, I've called Mike out on this. I've texted him about this personally. So I'm not saying anything that I wouldn't say personally to Mike, you know, as a friend.
Well, and you can, there's a couple different things real quick on Mike too, because I was early on, I just decided, man, I need to stay neutral in this because, you know, the whole militia thing and everything. I don't want some sheriff hating on us. But when Mike came out for Stephanie, because he had done a good job in Anderson, everybody said he did a good job.
And I knew him when he was Anderson chief, you know?
Yeah,
absolutely.
But when he came out for her, I'm like, why would a law and order guy be voting for this gal that's office has had 10 Brady's and their felony trial win rate is so low? You know, I don't understand that. And then there's one other principle that a guy brought to me the other day. He said, you know, the difference between being a chief of police where you can just be fired. It's the city council hires and fires you. So you answer to the city council. Sure. And versus being a sheriff where you don't answer to anybody.
You answer to the people.
To the people directly. So I don't, you know, I don't know.
I read an A News Cafe article because I do go on there and read what the enemy's doing, you know, often, because it's good to know. So there's an article written about your debate with Michael Johnson. Right, that happened, I believe, last week?
Was it? We've had a couple.
I think it was the most recent one.
League of Women's Voters?
It was.
Okay.
You know, and the article actually ended up looking where it started, you know, where it was, you know, all anti-green, pro-Johnson, pro-establishment, to where they were like, wait, we're not voting for either of these guys. Right. You know, which is a testament to you, I think. You know, but the biggest question was, what is the difference between you two? Because their article was all about how similar you guys were. So what's the main difference here?
There are similarities as far as you know, years of experience. Obviously, he's been a chief. And I try and tell this to people when they ask, and I'm glad you did, because I have all my experience here is exclusively in Shasta County. 27 years. I started in the jail. And in 1990 as a deputy, that's back when they hired deputies into the jail. And I worked custody. I went to patrol. I went to detectives. From there, I went to school resource where I worked for several years and did the youth leadership camps and that type of thing. It was a good break from the day-to-day grind of stuff. And then I came back to patrol and promoted to sergeant. And I was supervising at any one time. I've looked at Johnson's career, and he went from a sergeant at Eureka to Ione with a 5-man department. And like you said, he's answered to the city council and then the city manager. So he had a number of bosses there too. And then he came to Anderson, 18-man department. So, and at any one time during my career in my supervisory leadership capacities, I had some time when I was in the jail and watch commander, I had 40 people under me, running shifts and civilian staff all through my career. And then, so after a year of a sergeant, I got promoted into the office of the sheriff as the admin sergeant, which that's basically the catch-all for any admin duties. I did internal affairs investigations. I probably averaged 30 a year for 3 years, if not, give or take a few. I was in charge of the training. I was a range master, range instructor, and then I took over as range master later on, running all of our training through that for a period of time. And that's at the time I was trying to promote again, in my last few years and go out and make some really good positive change. And I've always been... the record search, I'd ask this in an email, like, what's one of your downfalls or something like that? Well, I tell it like it is. I remember as a young deputy 2-3 years in when they weren't following their duty manual that they wrote. I'm sitting in the undersheriff's office, man to man. Explain why I'm upset or why I wanted to file a grievance. Well, it's just because you didn't follow what you wrote.
Honesty can be a downfall sometimes.
It is.
But in the end, it is virtuous in it. Actually,
the truth prevails. At the end of the day, because that's all we're after here. And this is the whole beginning of this movement. This whole thing was really prefaced on the idea that we want honesty, we want integrity, we want transparency, and we want people to represent us. We don't want people that are trying to be politicians, people that are trying to, ride the coattails of somebody else, or somebody else's experience.
To secure our liberty.
This is what we need here. So what comes up, especially in the sheriff's race, only in the sheriff's race, is this idea of a constitutional sheriff and what that means. And I think a lot of people are mistaken about what that means. They hear that and they go, oh, they're these alt-right extremists, where I'm like, look, no, that's the least extreme.
The Constitution was designed as a bottom-up. And if you understand that as a sheriff, then you understand that you are the supreme law of the county. And I know California has some...
1974, I think that changed in California, where everybody reports to the attorney general of the state.
Right. That's the top cop of the state is the attorney general.
But tell me about what it means to be constitutional, because both you and Mike Johnson are claiming to be
right.
Constitutional.
And I'll start it off this way. A lot of people who are laymen at it and don't really realize that, like I touched on earlier, I'm a constitutional sheriff. I will protect and defend the Constitution. Well, no, the main difference here is I will protect the people from the people that are trying to violate the Constitution.
Which is many now. It
is. The government overreach, the mandates, the things of that nature, and so that is my definition of a constitutional sheriff. I hate the fact that the penal code, California Penal Code, says the sheriff may issue CCWs. The sheriff may go with open carry if the county's under a certain population. Well, those should be shall. And we should be a constitutional carry state.
So tell me what that means for people that don't understand what
constitutional
that means.
Carry means you don't have to jump through the hoops.
Because I've always thought this, right? That is the only right given to me by the Constitution, by God, that I have to have a permit for. Doesn't make any sense.
Yes, and I'm on the same page with that. That I would lobby the best I could and been as many years, try and get as many sheriffs together in the state as I could. So let's start getting a movement towards this constitutional carry. The 43 other states have open carry.
What do the stats show? What's the data show as far as security and safety for that?
I don't have the numbers. I don't. It would probably take me my small brain a long time to
I can tell you
but
straight up. Constitutional carry states have the least crime, or counties, or wherever you want to look at it. Anybody who is constitutional carry has less crime.
It's 20 to 30% less as well.
I love watching I'm not on Facebook or Instagram anymore, but I'm still on Twitter. I love watching when people post something. Hey, here's a good guy with a gun. Where you see somebody come trying to rob somebody, the person with the gun's able to.
I would love to see a
kill 'em.
sheriff that had some educational classes too for the deputies. I had one tell me that he swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, but at post he never had one class on the Constitution.
read the Constitution.
And it's all just about
remember having that either.
department policy and procedure. So in the deputy's defense, they don't even know half the
And
time.
now
what
there's
they are.
people out there on the other side, and I've read the commentary, people that say, well, the Constitution no longer applies in the way it was written. It's a living, breathing document. It changes with time. The culture changes the Constitution. And so it's culture drives the Constitution, not vice versa, where I think that's completely incorrect.
What they're trying
we
to
don't have
say-
a bottom line, we don't have a country.
What they're trying to say is that words change. The meaning of words change over time. And that's bullshit. Because the Merriam-Webster dictionary was created so that people could not change the definition of the words.
Right.
So the Constitution of the United States could not be changed. And that is a fact. Fact check that.
Here's a fact. Here's a fun fact about John Green. He graduated from high school in Cottonwood, so he does get bonus points.
Which way do those points go now?
I had the gun rack. I had the gun rack in my truck.
Tell us about your upbringing. Tell us about where you're from and your
Yeah.
about your background.
We moved up here when I was 15 from Southern California. I was kind of a military baby, so we were in Germany my first few years of my life, but we went back to Southern California and lived there up till bounced around, Ventura down to Banning out in the desert. And my dad was a school teacher and got a counseling job at Red Bluff High School. So
awesome.
we moved up here halfway through high school, which was a culture shock, man. It was different.
Yeah.
I played football down there and in high school, and then I come up here and I look at these. This is like I'm playing against grown men up there, man. It's like, wow. And I was, I was 5'9", about 130 pounds, and not fast either. So, it took me a while to do all right. But so I graduated in 1984. Went away for a year to UC Santa Barbara. I was a young senior, so I went away to this ridiculously fun school at 17, so I kind of lost my mind a little bit, got a few units, came back, went to Shasta College, played baseball for a year, and then met my wife during that time, and we ended up getting married, and I was an electrician for a few years.
Oh, right on.
Right. So, and I got tired of the layoffs and things like that. And she had an uncle that was in law enforcement locally, and I started talking to him, and he's like, man, you ought to go to the academy. So I applied and put myself through the academy, and the day, I don't know, it was a couple days before I was getting ready to leave, the sheriff's office called me because I'd tested, and they said, hey, we want to hire you and send you to the academy. And I had just gotten done. I was out for a couple days, and I'm like, well, hey, I already graduated, so hire me. And they're like, well, no, we got to hire people to send, as they had the money to do that.
Yeah.
And so I got hired at Anderson Police Department for like $7 an hour for a park patrol, which was like a reserve, writing parking tickets in Anderson River Park on the weekends. But it was a few months later, and I got hired and went in the jail. And we just had our first son. He's 33 now. Just turned 33 last week. So, I've got three adult children. He's the oldest, and then I got a son that's 30 and a daughter that's 27. I have 5 grandkids. They're all like 6 years and younger. So yeah,
I need to talk to you about your diet and exercise program, because John and I graduated the same year from high school, and look at John. He doesn't even have a gray hair.
No, you guys both look great for you.
Now, what's the ticket?
Yeah, what's the story?
The genetics with the hair. My dad didn't turn white until probably his late 60s. So, but no, if you'd have seen me back in November, man, I had injured my shoulder a year before that playing softball, and couldn't even play golf because I was hurt. And so I'd put on a lot of weight with the COVID and stuff like that. So back in November, I'm like, I had enough. So
Okay, we got a question here.
We got a caller?
Yeah, we got a caller. It's Terry. What's up, Terry? Okay, we're 15 seconds out. Lonnie, you're up next because I haven't heard nothing from you yet. Next question's on you.
Well, you were covering it early on, kind of how the appointees, it came up through the appointees thing. Right. And I think a big thing to address is that whistleblower.
Terry,
Okay.
hold that thought.
Let me hear the...
Go ahead, Terry.
I think Lonnie's talking.
Go ahead. He'll get back to it. What's up?
Okay.
You're on air.
Hey, John, how you doing?
Hey, Terry, good to hear you.
Another beautiful day.
Yes, it is. Anyway, John, there's a couple of questions about, that when you're a sheriff, you're beholden to the people. I mean, your job basically is to protect the rights of the sovereign, like you said. And a police chief's job is to beholden to the city manager because that's who hires and fires him. The question I have is that there's been some talk about people taking money from marijuana collectives and things like that. And I think that I think that was misappropriated. Can you kind of explain what that was all about?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, Terry. I appreciate that. I like every opportunity to explain that, like I did 4 years ago. And so when I was running against Tom Basenko, I got a call from a gentleman who was he's a businessman, owns numerous businesses, and he was a part owner in one of the collectives in Shasta Lake, right? Legal collective, legal business, pays its taxes, pays the permit fees and all that. So I went and met with him. And he asked me my opinion on marijuana, and I said I don't like it. I don't endorse it. I take it off the street as much as I could during my career, and I will go after illegal grows. Period. And he enjoyed my candor and my honesty in that, and we got to talking. He asked about some other donations that I'd received, and one of them was from the Redding Rancheria, and he goes because he knows a lot of people at the Rancheria, and offered to match their donation. And I said, absolutely, sure, thank you. It was late in the game, and my campaign's fund. Even if you look at my campaign funding right now, I run it pretty much half out of my own pocket. So because I figure if I don't invest in myself, why would I expect everybody else to? So, but yes. So the short answer is yes. I had a donation back in 2018 for the last election. From a marijuana collective, and so this came up right after that,
which is a legal business.
It is a legal business, and in fact, in the first 2 years, the city of Shasta Lake collectives, between their taxes and fees, they were able to repave all their roads, or most of their roads, and put that money towards infrastructure. So I didn't have an issue with it. It came up about a week later. After I did a radio show and it was coming out, and so it was KQMS I did, and I said the same thing I just said here, that yes, I did. It's a legitimate business. I'm anti-marijuana. I'm anti-illegal grow. It decimates our forest. It takes our water. It's bad on the environment. And so I then did some more research, and I called the other collective, or one of the other collectives up in Shasta Lake, and I said, hey, have you guys ever donated anything to the sheriff's office? And I got one. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we donated money in the form of an ad sponsorship to the Peace Officer Memorial flyer that they put out during the Peace Officer Memorial Week when they have the ceremony. They didn't have it last year or this year. Sure. So I'm like, oh, okay. Do you have that ad or what you did? So I got a letter from Tom Basenko thanking me for the donation and sponsorship. And so I said, great. Can I have a picture of that? And so I went up there and took a picture of it. And as soon as I put that out, hey, it's okay for the sheriff.
It's amazing
to accept money from a collective. And that was back in 2011 before it had been legalized. Sure. So it was still a medicinal outlet,
Listen, I think very few people will, especially on our side, will say, hey, illegal marijuana grows are good.
Right.
Nobody's going to say that, But if we're going to accept them as a legitimate business who are paying taxes, who are contributing to the community in positive ways, I say let's get behind them.
And that goes back to part of my definition as a constitutional sheriff is to protect all businesses, all people in their pursuit of liberty and happiness. And so that business is paying its fair share, if not more, because of the regulations, then it's a legitimate business. So
Lonnie.
What?
Lonnie.
Yeah. So anyway, that's
good.
But
circle back to you.
It has come. It has come back just relentlessly, and I finally outed it at the Republican Women's Dinner the other night because this guy's out there handing out these flyers, a hit sheet on me that is 99% false, and it just trying to make me look bad and discredit me and unbased. They're not even facts. They're lies.
We were talking about that earlier, how it doesn't have to be true. You just have to say it. If somebody puts something out on social media, all of a sudden it's truth.
Yeah. So I made the comment. I said, now I have to spend, a minute of my introduction to dispel this piece of paper that's going around. But I'm going to do that for you guys. So
I got 6 hours to talk about cannabis, but we're not going to go there right now. Lonnie has a question. We got a couple minutes left here. Yeah. Maybe a minute and a half. Let's get it in.
Well, I think it was before, or you had retired, but that whistleblower letter. That's a big thing floating around right now, and that's a hot ticket. That's a hot ticket, and it has some implications towards Sheriff Johnson right now.
Right, it does, and I read it when it came out, just like we all did, and I don't know if I've seen the full version, but I had heard rumors from friends and stuff that there had been some allegations of misuse of the California Law Enforcement Teletype System, CLETS, which you can only use in certain circumstances. Sure. That was done, and that it goes back to the letters of no confidence from the Deputy Sheriff's Association and the Admin Association that apparently had been shipped to the Board of Supervisors months prior to this whole thing. We're talking back in February of 21. And so then when why it was sat on and not even made public, but as soon as it was starting to come out to the public, next thing you know, here's the rumors of Chief Johnson getting brought in the back door, and hey, let's fix this, and Eric's going to retire or resign and go to the newly created position over at the CAO's office, and we'll come in and here's your highest here's your highest single year. Here's your I want to know who he talked to and what the timeline is, because there's an email out there that he put out to his troops when this was coming about that indicated that the talks had begun quite a lot prior to June. So there was stuff going on that
people deserve to know this information,
and that's transparency. And you got to be transparent about that. This is the highest elected position in the county, as you stated earlier, and people need to know. You know?
So we got 1 minute left, John. Go ahead and just lay it out there.
Real quick, I kind of want to lead them in a way. How's it going on the campaign trail? What are you seeing? What are people telling you? Concerns. I mean, what's your overall feeling of the atmospherics out there right now?
I think I hold my own very well, and I think I have a lot of ideas that, in fact, my last campaign platform, when I saw my competitors come out, I pulled out a card that I used to carry around 4 years ago, one of my campaign cards, and it's exactly the same.
Sure.
Because I had some good ideas then. I haven't changed in 4 years. Sure. I made a run at it. I talked to the people. I did very well. And I think, and at the time, people were ready for a positive change and a betterment of the services that they get. And I know I could still offer that. I wouldn't be doing this for my health. Trust me.
Sure.
It's in my heart. I'm genuine. I'm sincere, and I'll tell you how it is. Yeah. And that's what I've been doing. And but I'm very positive with it. I've got a lot of support that I didn't have last time. And if I lose voters because of there was not this much.
It was as contentious as
it wasn't. It wasn't. I mean, it was a little subversive stuff going on last time, but it's not as out in the open as it was. I mean, I think Tom and I had 2, maybe 3 public debate type things, and one of them was private. So, and this one we're doing these like every week, and thank goodness my last one's tomorrow.
A lot more people are paying attention right now.
They are, which I ever have. I love that.
It's fantastic.
That is
we thank you for what you're doing. It takes a lot of courage to get out there and put yourself in a position to have a target on you. Because whether you like it or not, when you get into that political arena, as we all know in here, people are going to say things about you that are untrue about your family. So having the courage to stand up and say, "Hey, I believe in this. I believe in this county. I believe in the people of this county. I believe in the system. Let's get to work on this." I think it's a great thing. So I appreciate you. Thank you, John.
You bet.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, good deal. All right, folks, we're back. We're back. This has been awesome. It's been so much fun. Time goes fast. We get a certain amount of time with all our guests, and it's just never enough time. There's so much to talk about. As far as what's going on in Shasta County, California here, we're making big waves. This is the epicenter of national change. I really believe that. I believe we're showing the rest of the country how to take their county back, community by community, person by person, and part of this process is the election cycle that we're in. You've seen a couple of the candidates run for different offices now, and now we have with us Mr. Kevin Cry, who's running for District 2.
District 1.
District 1.
I flip-flop those all the time.
And hold on, before we get Kevin going, for the viewers' sake, we got a little handout.
We do.
Deal. So, for best question, we've got shirt. Okay. Another shirt. Right there. The logo on the back, logo on the front. And then we also have 2 hats, both the green with the earth tone and the mesh. We just don't have them to show you right now, and also the black and white. So give us a call. Put Kevin in the hot seat. He loves it. He gets right in there, gets fired up.
So it's District 1.
District 1.
District 1. So give us a call. Best question.
So, Kevin, we've all known a lot about you. We've been with you here over the course of your campaign. You've been on the campaign trail. We've been at your events. We've had you on here as a guest as well. You know, so I want you to talk a little bit about your background, not a lot. I really want to talk about the campaign, how things are going, how you feel, you know, that things are going out there in the community, and what's going on in the race.
Yeah. So just in like a 30-second intro, you know, I was moved here from Orange County in the late 70s. And I'm running because I don't even recognize the county that I grew up in anymore. I, used to be, catch and release was you had, your fill of bass on the lake. And, camping was done, out at the lake or, out by a creek somewhere, but not by the river trail itself. So, yeah, I'm running because change was needed and I was tired of, waiting for someone else to make the changes I wanted to see.
And much like the other candidates who we've seen here on our platform, Kevin's not running to be a politician. He's not running because he's looking for a new career, needs a career change. You're a business owner, you're a family man. You're not a person who necessarily wants to do this job other than to help the community.
Evil people seek positions of power more than good people get pushed and nudged and pulled and their arm twisted behind their back.
Sure,
to
and it takes
run,
a good person sometimes like Kevin to say, hey, there's a problem here. There's a problem that's not getting fixed. And you can only stand by and watch other people trying to fix it before you have to step in and say, hey, look, guys, we need to throw that engine away and build a new one.
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, for me, I just decided to run after I went to my very first board of supervisors meeting when a person said they work for the state and they're an extension of the government. And I thought, holy crap. I'm 45, and this is why I've always hated politics. Is we're supposed to have elective representatives of the people they represent, and there was nothing. I mean, our state hates us. Federally, I almost think our country sometimes hates us, hates our way of life.
Right? Oh, they absolutely do.
We have a way of life here in Shasta County that's different. People would move from all over the place and take less money to live here. And now our elected leaders are giving out just hordes of money as government officials, begging people to come here. I just don't buy into that. I just don't buy into that. This is a great place. Yeah. And we should be unapologetic.
And government money never solves anything. It only prolongs a problem, makes new obstacles, new issues that need to be dealt with later with more government money. So it's a perpetual cycle that we need to break here locally.
I want to talk about So I went to my regular coffee shop, Kaleidoscope, the other day.
Oh, really? On Athens?
Yeah, on Athens.
Okay.
And the local guys there, they're probably in their averages, I'm going to say 60s and 70s, and
late 60s and 70s.
Yeah. And I went in there and they know I'm into politics and they said, hey, this Kevin Cry guy? And I was like, yeah, I know him. He's a great guy. And they were like, well, what do you think? And they were like, he came in here the other day and he was talking. They were super pumped on you, man.
Well, yeah, we've been doing a lot of like little coffee shops in District 1, and we did one there a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. So, and then I'm talking to people, and you've been holding events at like people's houses and talking to like smaller crowds, like real personable. And I just wanted to say, it's having an effect because when I go out into public, people are talking about it.
Yeah, well, I tell people, I'm knocking on doors not because I want your vote. I'm knocking on doors because if I get elected or when I get elected, I want to know exactly what people want, and I want to be accountable. So if you see me in Costco and then I vote any kind of way different than what I said as I
grab
campaigned,
your shirt and say, "Hey, man."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I don't ever foresee voting differently ever than what I've campaigned on. And I said,
you don't strike me as the kind of guy who's going to kowtow to somebody
well, no,
else's idea.
and I just said, and fire me in 4 years. Yeah. I said, if I don't get enough done, fire me in 4 years. I said, I'll be the first to fire myself. Like I have no desire to. I mean, I've always said I'm getting into politics. I will not let politics get into me.
Yeah.
Like
So I've noticed a trend, like as things get closer to election now, this term establishment come up a lot. We're see, at first it was like, oh, we got good candidates coming, and then you see the allies kind of tighten up. Speak to that establishment.
Yeah, I mean, when Trump was running his first campaign, and he would talk about draining the swamp, and I never understood that, and I don't even think I understood it even through the first 4 terms because I still didn't pay super close attention. I mean, embarrassingly enough, I mean, I just was head down with my own kids and my own business, and now I see just how people are there's just such anger and vitriol about people wanting to maintain power. And it's like, just because other people have different ideas.
Sure.
And they're so afraid of losing. Locally, I can't even imagine what that
So
would be
much
at the
so
state and
that
federal
you have
level.
a socialist progressive who have teamed up with the quote unquote
yeah.
Republicans.
Yeah.
Right.
They're not Republicans.
No.
I mean,
well, they
no.
are. They're just
Well,
not conservatives.
Yeah. I mean,
you know?
you can
Rhinos.
Well, yeah. In this day and age, you can write anything down on a piece of paper, and you are that. You know.
Sure.
And as a society, we're actually, and actually as a society, we're kowtowing and now telling children they're in trouble because they use the wrong pronoun or somebody that wants to change something. I mean, it's asinine, and we're watching the burning down of our country and everything that we. And I don't mean we just here in this room. I'm talking about we, I think, as a country who really love this country, and what we have foundationally. We're just watching it burn down by the people that are yelling the loudest.
So you're saying Mitt Romney just identifies as a Republican?
Yeah. He does. Yes, absolutely. And again, I mean, just
but the people of Utah keep electing the guy. I don't get it.
Just
I don't
just call it what it is. I mean, if you're a socialist or you're a Democrat, you're independent, just call yourself that. Quit calling yourself a Republican.
Sure.
And not being fiscally conservative, and you waffle.
Well, especially in a county like this, if you don't have an R next to your name, and I know these races such as yours, they're nonpartisan. They're nonpartisan races. You're not going to have an R or a D or an independent by your name, but people know that you are, and they know that to get elected in this county or up here in the North State, you have to be a Republican or at least a professed conservative.
Yeah, I have a lot of people that would consider themselves very liberal voting for me solely because of the, how I view the fiscal responsibility of government,
sure.
And then also just on a safety issue of people wanting to go to the grocery store and not having panhandlers accost them.
Sure.
I mean I think that unites us all. Public safety is something everybody can get behind, no matter.
And it's really interesting
what
to
your
see how the other
politics
side attacks us, right? I mean, you can say something as healthy, as benign as what you just said, that I want people to be safe when they go to the grocery store, and then I read the comments, people say, why is Kevin Cry's wife going to the grocery store at 10 o'clock at night, and the things that they say, the way they attack us has no political clout. There's no integrity there in that debate. They're not willing to come to the table and talk about actual issues that are a problem, because you're going door to door, you're talking to people. People are telling you what the issues in the county are.
Yeah, and it's not even me just going the door. I have a team of people, not one person paid, that's going door to door. That's holding a sign. I mean, we have a very grassroots group of people. That are moms, grandmothers, uncles, brothers, daughters.
And you don't know coffee shops where you can send your employees to hold signs for $50 an hour. Now, here we go.
Well, I mean, everybody can raise money and spend it the way they want. To me, I think there's a lot of parallels, or not parallels, but there's a lot of paradigms just in how my opponent and I run our campaigns.
Yeah, sure.
and
Well, I think it has to do with kind of people that you are as well.
We got a call from Benjamin. Maybe it's Benjamin Nowain, I'm not sure.
Sure.
About the roles and responsibilities of what you're, for you. So
what's the question?
Take those off.
Benjamin, we have you on the line here. Go ahead and state your question, please, sir.
I don't hear it.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead and state your question, please, sir.
We can't hear it.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hey, go ahead.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So I just wanted to ask Kevin Cry what the job of a supervisor does. Like, what are the roles and responsibilities?
Hey Ben, that's a great, and I'm glad you.
Down.
Here we go. You're good now.
Yeah, the most important thing, Ben, and I'm glad you call in, because every time we try and talk at the board of supervisors meeting, I feel like you want to be behind a screen and you don't actually want to have the conversation. So this is at least a start. The roles and responsibilities to oversee a budget of $600 million and make sure it's spent fiscally responsible to the taxpayers that are putting that money in there. Also, the job is to be a voice, and I think this is what it boils down to. We have to understand that we have liberties and rights under the U.S. and state constitution, and we are the last line of defense. First, the sheriff. The next is the board of supervisors, and if those board of supervisors aren't listening to the constituents, as long as it doesn't break or take away our rights and liberties, we have to defend that, and we have to listen to the people that elect us. And we have locally gotten so far away from that as we have not just like respectfully tried to engage our local leaders to listen to us, but now we're going so far as to they don't even want to listen to us. When you have candidates that are saying they want to limit public comment because they look at it that it's the role of the people that are there to do business to go first. And I say it's the taxpayers that are the ones that we're there to support and do business with. And if you're there as a for-profit or even a nonprofit company, you can wait at the back of the line behind every single person that wants to address the board, because those are the elected officials speaking for us. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the big delineation. I mean, there's a lot of other obviously responsibilities. You sit on between 11 and 14 boards, and you're going to be the voice for Shasta County on those 11 to 14 boards. I mean, I can go on and on. I know that you're trying to ask me a question to trip me up like I don't know what's going on. But in the reality is, I'm so tired of people saying that the role of the responsibility or the responsibility.
Put the headphones on.
What's that?
No,
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, that for me, I just want to see our elected leaders listening to people. And it's really sad when I've knocked on as many doors as I have, and I have people told me that I've lived at this address 30 years, and you're the first person in over 20 years who's knocked on my door. And it would be different. It would be different if I had only knocked on a couple hundred doors. But we've knocked on hundreds and thousands of doors.
Sure.
And that bothers me.
They said by the time you're done, you'll have knocked on 5,000 doors.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is Benjamin gone? Okay, we have another question. The last caller apparently maybe didn't like the answer, but we'll just go to the next question. Okay, we got Terry on the line again. What is it, Terry? Go for it, brother.
Yep.
Hey, Terry, you there? All right, guys. Well, if we can't get this deal, we're going to keep talking. So Kevin, you're talking about the responsibility of the supervisor representing the people, and that's really what we've gotten away from. When people say, "Why are you guys so angry? Why are you guys so involved? Why do you care so much?" It's because we have to live here. We have to raise our children here. Hopefully, they raise their children here as well. We're going to be here for generations. We want to know that we are well represented in every chapter of our life. Right now, we're young, strong men. We run our businesses. We do our thing, but what happens later on in life, when we feel we have less representation than we do now because we're not as involved in the community as we are at this age, So I want to know that through the rest of my life that I'm going to have people that are elected that are going to uphold the Constitution, number one, but then also represent my needs and deal with the issues that affect me.
And I want to just say, too, that being a supervisor, because people talk to me about running for it in Tehama County, and man, that is just a tough job. I would love the part of the job where you get to stand, make a stand. That kind of, but these, like all the budgetary things and like the different boards. But the one important thing that I really, really want to see out of our supervisors is my pet peeve in boards like school boards or any other kind of board is, and they hire a superintendent of schools, and then the superintendent runs the school instead of the elected school board. And the same, a CAO can kind of run the county, and I want to see our supervisors do it.
Hold on. Let Kevin answer the question from Woody, and then we'll put Terry on the line again.
No, I mean,
I don't know if there was a question.
Yeah, there wasn't necessarily a question. It was just
my bad. I was listening on both sides. So go ahead. We have Terry on the line with a question here.
Hey, Terry.
Terry, go ahead.
You're on, Terry.
You're on, Terry.
Okay, am I on? Because
Yes, sir.
kind of got dropped a couple of times on the phone. Sorry, guys. Anyway, Kevin, if you could talk about, you really have a program to where you can use Health and Human Services for helping kids that are in need and I think that's a really good one. And the other one I want to ask you about is that the differences between you and your opponent. So those are the two questions I have. I'd like to explain to the folks that program you have for the kids. I think is great.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you.
Those are good questions, Terry.
So what I had talked about is our Health and Human Services budget is $300 million. And what I've seen in the school systems is the school systems are, during COVID, they actually said PE is no longer essential. So they took PE out because they didn't want, kids touching basketballs and touching equipment because they couldn't clean it up. So, we've already seen the state in education want to just basically do away with anything that's healthy for kids, it seems like half the time. So I want to take about 1.5% to 2.25% out of the $300 million budget, and I want to allocate that for county-approved programs for kids. I'm thinking kindergarten through third grade. What you have in some charter schools or some homeschool networks is schools get an allocation of money each month so they can get, music lessons or martial arts lessons or dance lessons, etc. Something extracurricular, because if we don't invest in our kids because of what's happened the last 2 years, we're going to see a massive influx of kids entering the criminal justice system when these kids turn 18. Now, the kids that were in 4th and 5th grade that were going in developmentally, I mean, they were not remotely out of the clear, but they're farther down socially that they're not going to be as adversely impact statistically as like a kindergartner through third grader. So I want to see some of that money allocated and pushed to the kids directly, because we have a lot of kids in Shasta County who are far below the poverty line, and they can't afford those types of programs. And I think that's one of the only ways to catch kids up.
That's refreshing to hear, because I've been saying that for a long time, having a lot of encounters with homeless, dealing with them. Public safety ends up with the call, right?
Yeah.
It's got to start when they're young.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard to rehab once they're all the way to that addict state, living, on the street. So that would be a great, prevention.
Yeah, and
great program.
And you're talking $5 or $6 million. I think will really alter a lot of kids' lives, especially and then of course who certifies, and we can go into that. But there's a ton of martial arts studios, dance studios, things to get kids active and engaged mentally and get them into programs where they're going to learn some leadership skills and how to take care of their body in a healthy manner and be able to manage stress in a different way. And then the other question, I think it was something about the difference of
between you and your opponent.
Yeah. Well, my opponent and I mean, I don't like being the person that tries to stand on somebody's shoulders to call themselves tall. So I will say our differences are very wide. From a fiscal we were asked a question this last week at the Republican Women's Forum about fiscal responsibility, and would you, are you in favor of raising fees, and would you even roll back fees? Well, one thing is, again, I've got I haven't run for an office, so I don't have a voting record, but my opponent does. Every chance she's had to raise fees at the city of Reading, whether it's disposal fees, landscape maintenance fees, building fees, she's raised them and made Reading more expensive to live. On top of that, of course, the raises she's given out. Now, I know when you give the figure up to 40%, there was one role or one job that hadn't been filled and was raised up. But the average role or the average raise was up to 29%, I believe. I mean, our city manager makes more than any governor in the United States.
That's unbelievable.
Our city manager. It used to be you go to school, you go to the military, you go to a trade school, you go to college, et cetera, and you get out of college and you if you want to make really, really good money, you become self-employed. Sure. It's private industry. And if you want a really secure job with a retirement and things like that, you go government. Well, now, I mean, we're in a community right now that the government has the best paying jobs.
Right. And that's a national problem.
And we don't have, but it doesn't have to be that in Shasta County. And we don't have the industry here to support these crazy raises. And people say, oh, well, we got to be competitive. Then let's get other people. Because I'm sorry, because we're just going to go bankrupt in the unfunded liabilities we have. And my opponent supports that kind of stuff. And it goes on and on. Like for me, I lead and I rally people and I get people behind my cause to door knock, spin signs, get on the campaign. She's paying everybody. you know, and hey, and that's okay. I
think it's important for people to know right now that what you're doing right now is so important, that it's waking people up to the point that you're winning right now, Kevin. You know, as I go out in the community, I'm out in the community a lot.
Can I say this? I'm not running against an opponent. I'm running for Shasta County.
Sure. But you're, because of that, you're winning right now.
Yeah.
You are winning. Everywhere I go, people say, Kevin Cry, Kevin Cry, Kevin Cry. You know, I think you're refreshing. You're somebody that obviously has done their homework, is articulate, knows how to address the problems that we have, and offers solutions, which is not what we're seeing from the other side right now.
Yeah. I mean,
sorry to interrupt, guys. We got a caller on the line. Oh, yeah. They've been waiting for a couple minutes. I was trying to be patient, but
go ahead.
We got a caller. Let's
go ahead.
Okay, we got 15 seconds, so go ahead and talk for another 10.
I just after the caller, because I talk to so many people all day, and one of the main concerns in this county is the building department and the crazy cost for permits.
Complaining to me like crazy
every day. I hear about that.
Constantly.
So I'd like to.
Well, it's supposed to, like, government people there are supposed to make the process easier.
Exactly.
Supposed to spur business on. Not supposed to be the I gotcha.
Not create
supposed
obstacles.
to be exactly. Not to be, you know, the Shasta County mafia. I mean, it's meant to make it easier. I mean, my mom. I have a very specific, you know, proprietary story to my family where they had somebody out because they're going to put solar, and then they tried to ding them for other things on their property.
That's probably the most common.
Go ahead.
Okay, here's our call.
Go ahead.
Yes,
Hi.
Hi, David.
Thanks for taking my call. Carlos, why is your Twitter name Carlos Picata? Is that like an inside joke? And if it is, can you tell the story?
That is not my Twitter handle. Mine is Carlos Zapata, and that is somebody out there who probably made a fake account to pretend to be me. Yep. You know what? I think that was born out of when I first gave the speech to the Board of Supervisors. They actually got my name wrong, and they wrote it as Carlos Picata, so somebody probably just picked that up and ran with it. But, yeah, what's your question, sir?
That was it, I think.
It's turned down. Yeah. So yeah.
Let's get back to the real conversation.
The thing with the building department, again, I mean, this is the thing with just bureaucracy, is like government growing more government, begetting more government. It's like reading like a chapter out of the Bible where it's just like in Matthew where it's just the whole lineage. And it's like your eyes start to roll in the back of your head. It's like at some point, can we just get people in place to help constituents, voters, residents of Shasta County, taxpayers make their life easier?
Well, and the cost. I mean, you know, I think the median income in Shasta County is still around $40,000.
Yeah, I think it's.
And yet, a building permit is between $30,000 and $50,000 in Shasta County by the time you pay all your fees.
You're $50,000 in.
You know, and so that's really high in a lower income county.
Well, welcome to Tehama County, I believe, is a fraction of what Shasta County is. And I mean, I haven't got that far into the weeds of that, but
you don't have to get too far to know that we got to pay those salaries that you're talking about. Those 25% increase in salaries, those have to come from somewhere.
Exactly.
You know, so they drum up business by doing what they're doing, and the government should never be a business. You know, that's when you understand.
Government's not meant to make money. No. It's like RU in the city of Reading, which I know has nothing to do with the county, but when you start to look at how there's all this influx of money at the end, and they're buying, you know, the City of Reading Police Department shuttles, or buying them a Tesla, because how about just giving that money back to the taxpayers? How about giving the money back to the people?
Hey, I wanted to circle back to what you were talking about $50 an hour to hold signs and stuff. Throw that up real quick, because you know,
let's not use the term "circle back" anymore, John.
Jeff Psaki ruined that for everybody.
Who did? What am I supposed to say?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
so it says Chris Resner. What's up, friends? I have an idea, but I need.
This is
a good amount of
Instagram
people.
or Instagram,
it's
right?
Social media. Yeah, it's for Aaron's campaign. I have a good group so far, but still need about 15 people from 11:30 to 12:30 and or 4:30 to 5:30 this coming Tuesday, May 3rd, paying $50 per hour shift. Please message me ASAP if you want to, or know somebody that does. Thanks. Listen. And again, I know Kevin doesn't want to go down sort of attacking our opponents, but they've attacked me personally, so let me do it. Okay. Aaron Resnick claimed on a podcast to personally know me. I've never met the woman. She knows all these things about me. All these lies have been made up about me. When you're in business, people are going to talk shit about you, make up lies about you. When you step into politics, people are going to talk more shit about you and make up more lies. So it bounces off me. I don't care about it. But for an elected official right now, City Councilwoman Redding, to speak that way about me is completely unprofessional, wrong. And for that reason, I've made it my personal mission to make sure that she loses this race. So I'm good. I'm good with that.
So I just got to chime in just for a second because I've gone to all these not all of them, but I go to about 1 out of 3 fundraisers. And every time I go there on the constitutional candidates, there are freaking packed with people wanting to support, whether depending on the people that are not part of the establishment. I'm not going to say the constitutional candidates because that gets into my realm, but people are there. They're buying the raffle tickets. They're buying the auction items. They're paying to go to these events. And then when you go to the opposition side, you're looking and they got to hire people to pay to hold signs, So I'm just throwing it out there.
It paints a big picture.
Well, I think Kevin has one thing in common with Chris versus his candidate is that I believe that Aaron Resner also thinks that government is the solution to all of our problems. Yeah. And oftentimes I would guess that Kevin would think that government oftentimes is the problem, not the solution.
Yeah, government is a problem. Yeah. I mean, we're just and it's out of control. And I don't know, sometimes that ball or that wheel, that pendulum, or gets going so fast and going downhill. Like I don't know that one race or 10 years of races are going to really stop it. But I know it's so out of control right now, especially at the federal level, that we can impact Shasta County.
That's it.
I mean, Shasta County. We have a set vote goal that we're going after in terms of how we're knocking on doors, who we're talking to. We're laser focused at that.
How do you feel about it right now, Kevin?
We got about 1 minute left.
How do you feel about this right now?
You know what? I feel this. I feel like we're getting our message out, and I feel like it's up to the voters. And my goal from this whole thing is to run a clean, hard race. And if the voters in District 1 want the community to be safer, more affordable, and to be proud of it, I'm their vote. And if they want, it to get more expensive, if they want it to be a socialist utopia overrun with crime and homelessness, they're going to go the other way. And I think that may sound harsh, but voting record and then what we stand on. Last thing I'll say is when my opponent says it takes the average person 8 times to get arrested before they'll seek help, and we have to understand that as we move programs forward, I say no, because that second time they're breaking into someone's truck and stealing their tools, and now they can't feed their family the next day. That third time they're breaking into someone's car, taking their laptop for school. Now they can't go to college or they can't go to class. The fourth time, fifth, and I'm tired of it. When are the elected officials going to have our backs? When are the victims and when are the taxpayers and when are the people doing the right thing going to be stood up for?
And not using this county as a springboard for higher office.
Hey, we got a call from Nathan Blaze right now. Let's take it. We'll run it an extra minute. You got your time. I believe in freedom of speech.
Let's go.
And Nathan, everybody has a voice, man. And we respect people that stand up for what they believe in, straight up.
Hold on.
What's up, Nathan?
Call, are you there? You're here. We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Go ahead. What's your question?
Hello?
Nathan, are you there?
All right, guys. Looks like we lost our caller. We'll keep talking.
Can you hear me?
Get back on the line.
He's here. All right. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
You got a voice, brother. What's up?
Hey, what's up? Is this John?
This is John.
Shit, dude, what's going on? Where's all the episodes, man? What's going on with the Red, White, and Blueprint?
We've got another episode coming out here in just like another couple weeks. But what are you calling about in regards to what we're talking about tonight?
Well, let's answer this question. Right now, and this is a question a lot of people have had. What happened to the Red, White, Blueprint episodes? They got taken down off social media, off all platforms right now because we are remastering them. We're going back, editing some of the stuff, adding in some more information, making them better, cleaning them up a little bit. As you guys know, we're always moving at the speed of time, so we were putting these episodes out there. Now we have the luxury of time and going back and remastering them, and we have a new episode coming out on the 25th of May, so stay tuned. It should be a good one.
Okay. Oh, do you have any questions relevant to what we're talking about right now in this episode? I'd love to hear it. That was it?
He hung up. If he calls back, we'll take it.
All right. No big deal. I think we're out of time, guys. Mr. Kevin Pry, thank you. We're excited about you. I'm excited to see not only what you're doing now, but what you're going to do for the county here in the future as supervisor. So
appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for coming out, Kevin. Appreciate you, brother.
All right, guys, thanks for staying with us. You guys have been on for a couple hours now, and we're loving this. Getting more energized as we go on. There's a lot of exciting stuff happening right now. We're at the epicenter. I keep saying it's at the epicenter of a big movement. And I think it's a nationwide movement. I think it's something that we have here in Shasta County, the opportunity to make waves nationwide, and we're doing it with candidates like Mr. Eric Jensen, who's here with us today, and Mr. Tom Toller, who's with us as well here, our resident attorneys, if you will. And we're going to talk about the DA's race. Now, listen.
Wait, hold on. Before a second, I got gifts.
You got gifts?
I came with
Nobody
gifts.
brings gifts, man.
Yeah. I got hats.
Smokes.
Nice.
So
Awesome,
I think
awesome.
somebody already bought one here. There you go.
I feel like I should have bought one.
They're good-looking hats.
They're a really good looking hat.
I got the sign up in front of my house, so I might as well put the hat on.
So this
There you
is
go.
our formal endorsement here of Eric Jensen. Listen, this is a race that's near and dear to my heart for obvious reasons. We're not going to go down that road right now, but this is important. You know, the DA's race, the district attorney of our county, is an important person, and it's a race that people have not traditionally paid attention to. Usually the person runs unopposed, they're appointed, it's somebody who's already a shoo-in for the job, but it's never been as contentious as it is now. It's never had the eyes on it like it has now. So tell us about the race, what you're doing. Tell us about our friend Mr. Toller here and what he's doing.
All right. Well, first of all, good things are happening. We got a lot of momentum in the campaign, which is really exciting. People in this community do sense that there is something positive happening. I mean, they feel the hope of change in a way that I think they haven't for many years. I talk to people, and they tell me that they haven't voted, but they're going to vote this time. And I think there is a window of opportunity that we need to seize upon, because it'll pass by, and we'll be looking at this much like people looked at the Tea Party movement.
Sure.
We have to really make sure that we capitalize on this unique opportunity. But the district attorney's office is super important. It is the watchdog. I mean, ultimately, you can arrest anybody you want, but at the end of the day, the person that prosecutes, makes that decision, is your district attorney, and the buck stops with them. Beyond the district attorney's office, you have the AG in our state, and they rarely ever get involved. So it's a super important race. I think there was a news article that came out that was explaining that in the last 30 years here in Shasta County, there's only been 2 contested races.
Sure.
So it's not something. It's generally considered almost like a monarchy, if you will, and it's there's a kind of a line of succession. In fact, my most recent forum with my opponent, she made a statement that was indicative of that mentality. She said, "You just can't cut in line."
Yeah.
I've got news for you.
Yeah.
It's an elected
There's
position.
no line, lady.
Right.
Oh, that doesn't that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an elected position for a reason.
Sure.
The person in that office has to reflect the values and the mores of the community they serve. So anyway, the campaign's going fantastic. Lots of support from people, and it's really encouraging, particularly people who understand the necessity of being empowered to protect themselves. I was just out in Lakehead before I came over here today, and I was hearing the same story that I'm hearing in every other rural area. They're not being heard, and they're afraid to protect themselves.
Sure.
So that's something that needs to change. They are not particularly aware of who their elected officials are, and that needs to change too. And that's one of the things that I intend to do. I'm going to be out in the community. I'm going to make sure that they know who I am, not just in election season, but all the time, and making sure that their community is protected in a way that is tailored to their particular needs. So that's one of the things that I intend to do. I'm going to have 2 chief deputy district attorneys, one managing the trial calendar, and the other managing the administration of the office. That's how it was in the administration of Ms. Bridgette's predecessor, Steve Carlton. And I am very pleased to announce that we're formulating a team. This is a big effort, a big undertaking. There's a lot of work that has to be done, and I could not do it by myself, obviously. And we're formulating a team, and the first person who has publicly agreed to accept a role in that team is Mr. Tom Toller.
So I think that the only chink in your armor was that maybe people could say, well, Eric Jensen doesn't have enough experience, but then you bring someone like Tom in who has decades of. I haven't found one person that could say one bad thing about Tom.
Everybody loves Tom.
And I'm just saying, like, I mean, the guy doesn't have one violation. He like literally has a flawless record. And anyway,
he's awesome.
So listen, this is about team building. You nailed it. This is about leadership. And this has been our biggest gripe against this DA's office is that there's no leadership, there's no direction, there's no guidance, there's no training for the people that are working there, which is a disservice to the people that work for her. You know, so when we talk about, well, Eric might not have the trial experience that Stephanie has, it doesn't matter because it's about leadership, it's about morals, it's about character, it's about transparency and integrity, which is what you're running your campaign on. So when you're bringing people in like Tom Toller to fill these gaps on your team, this is making you stronger, not weaker. This isn't exposing any sort of chink in your armor that people might say you have. This is actually saying, hey, this is a guy who's a leader, a guy with a vision, who can put people in the right place, and that's what we need right now. So why don't we give Tom a couple minutes to introduce himself and his background, because it's pretty extensive. And
sure. Let me just set John straight first, though. I am a notorious convicted cone crosser. I was ticketed in the year 2000 down in Kern County. So
let's get that out of the way. Let's get it out.
Wait, got to come out of the closet. I've been working with Eric really since late January when we were first introduced, and just in working with him and seeing him out with the community, I really began to admire what I consider to be his leadership abilities. He just is a solid individual who understands people and has a passion for protecting their constitutional rights. But one of the things we've noticed in this campaign is that his opponent has gone all in.
Hold on.
Okay.
Let's just get into a little bit about who you are and your experience, so people can understand what you're saying. You know.
Sure. Who is this guy, Tom Toller?
Let's validate you here, Tom. Let's do it.
I came up to Reading in 1994 to apply as a deputy DA 1, and was hired by Dennis Sheehy, who was the DA then. I worked for him. And then I worked for McGregor Scott when he was DA. I followed Greg Cohen from the Shasta office down to Tehama County and worked for Greg in Red Bluff. And I was there about 2.5 years. And then right after 9/11, I ended up going to Sacramento, and I took a job with the District Attorneys Association in Sacramento. So I traded the courtroom for basically the research and training that's provided statewide to prosecutors. And I served as a staff attorney. I developed training for prosecutors. I was a lobbyist for 2 years on public safety bills in the Senate Public Safety Committee. And I finished my career there basically as their think tank guy. I wrote several white papers on the attempts to end the three strikes law and basically the Prop 47 that led to the catastrophic changes in our criminal justice system. And when Steve Carlton was elected and took office again in 2011, I came back up to Reading to work for him. And basically, for most of that time, I served as the felony filing deputy in the office. I reviewed literally thousands upon thousands of criminal complaints submitted by law enforcement and decided whether criminal charges should be filed or should not be filed, which is probably the most fundamental thing that a district attorney has to decide. And I also participated in helping to train my colleagues. And I did some other things. I didn't try cases at that time, but in my 22 years as a prosecutor, I have tried just about every kind of case you can other than a death penalty murder. So I have the kind of experience that Stephanie Burgett claims for herself and seems to think is so absolutely essential to the job. But I'm here to tell you, because I've done it, that that's simply a half-truth. It is not the whole story. Experience means nothing if you don't have leadership. She lacks it.
Or character.
Eric has it. Absolutely.
You know what blows me away is sometimes people claim to have all this experience, but then when your track record sucks, like you might as well just say you're
or when
new.
you're using your experience for bad, you know, you use your experience to work against the people of the county instead of working to create an atmospheric of people that feel safer, people feel more secure. You said, Eric, you know, the people that you're talking to, the rural communities who are afraid to defend themselves and their property, their families. So that's a problem.
Yep. Yeah, when you talk about this is where Tom is going to be so instrumental. I think Kevin Cry was talking about his opponent having a track record. Stephanie Bridget has a track record as well. And we're talking about a trial conviction rate that in 2016, 2017 was at 72%. The following year went down to 68%, then 57%, then 48%, and the last fiscal year, 45% on felony cases. That's where a guy like Tom Toller is going to come in and be a huge asset.
So what does that mean to the layperson?
That's what I was going to ask Tom is what's an acceptable rate? Because that sounds like a terrible rate, winning 45%.
No, wait. But I really need to know how many people jaywalked. I'm sorry. No, go
ran
ahead.
red lights.
Well, the fact of the matter is 45% is abysmal. At the very least, we want to be tracking the state average. There are 57 other counties in California. And I mean, it's pretty common amongst prosecutors to talk about 70% or higher conviction rate.
82% is what.
82 is what the stats show recently. And this becomes, it's a training issue. There are a lot of newer deputies in that office. Since Ms. Bridget took office in 2016, there are 26 deputies. There have been 17 attorneys that have left that office, some for other purposes. Bill Bateman, who's the public defender, once worked there, but many people have left, moved on to other places, and it's been a huge drain of trial skills and talent. The people that are there now don't seem to be performing at the same level. And so if we can bring some training in, if we can show them best practices, we can get that conviction rate.
Now, Tom, it starts with filing, right? Where you said earlier, you review the cases, thousands and thousands upon thousands of cases, and choosing wisely, using good judgment to decide what cases are actually going to get filed and pursued, correct?
Correct.
So it starts at the very beginning. So where's this failure in Ms. Bridget's office, Ms. Bridget's office, coming from? Is it coming in the courtroom and a lack of performance errors, or is it a judgment issue with the cases that get filed to begin with?
Yeah, I think we don't know. I mean, the fact of the matter is we have suspicions. One of the first numbers that came out that was so implicating and damaging was this idea of an 18% conviction rate on the most serious offense. We haven't been able to corroborate that yet. At least I haven't myself. We've asked for data from the district attorney's office that would prove that. We haven't received it as of yet. But that would be indicative of a practice called charge stacking. That is, I think, what you're alluding to, where essentially the charges are stacked excessively in a way to create leverage for plea deals.
Sure.
In fact, I just talked to an attorney on my way over to this podcast who was complaining of that very thing.
Sure.
So I think that is one of the big issues, Tom. I mean,
It's a combination of two things. Some things are being charged, which really would be better handled without bringing them into the criminal justice system. So it's not that a crime wasn't committed, but there are other programs that might be better served, especially with first-time offenders, young offenders. But the real problem is when crimes are overcharged because the goal is to try and extort a plea. And particularly with some of the problems we're seeing with late discovery of evidence, people are being encouraged to plead to felonies, and then at the last minute, things are discovered which show that, well, maybe the case isn't as strong as it was being presented by the prosecutors. And that's why you're seeing the poor conviction rates, because the juries see the evidence that's presented and it falls short.
So we have a question from Michael for Eric Jensen here. Let's go to this caller real quick.
Yep. Caller, go ahead.
It takes 15 to 20 seconds, so if you got something to say within that amount of time, go for it.
Just the Brady deal. I mean, that seems crazy to me, all the talk.
And again, the acceptable metric would be to have 0, and there's been 8 confirmed, possibly 10 in the last 5 years,
7 to 8 seconds.
Okay. Caller, do we have a caller there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hi, Michael.
So I have a question, and I don't have a lot of experience with the inner workings of district attorneys' offices, but I have witnessed an assistant district attorney in a case. What I firmly believe lie, and I was sort of wondering what would your process for auditing and making sure that they are doing the right thing and are being upfront, honest, and truthful. Like what would that process be, out of curiosity?
Well, I think sadly your concern is something that has repeatedly come up during my campaign and has been raised by a number of people in the local legal community. It is an issue of leadership and making sure that that there is a mandate from the top that truth is respected, that it is valued, and that we do not cheat to win. And what you are seeing in this office repeatedly is what I call an ends-oriented jurisprudence, where there is a goal in mind that they determine to be the right thing, and then they do whatever they can to achieve it. And that is simply not right. That is unethical. Prosecutorial ethics 101 is that you do not pursue charges that you do not believe that you can prove each element beyond a reasonable doubt. And in your situation where you think that somebody lied, that there should be an easy reporting mechanism for a complaint like that. I was looking the other day on their website, and they do have a complaint section, but oddly enough, when I requested that they release all of the complaints that have been lodged with their office, they claim to have none, which I find to be a shocking representation. But this is something that comes from the top down. It's establishing a culture. This is sadly a common complaint that people have with that office. I mentioned the McCatton murder trial, where one of the chief deputy DAs is quoted by an appellate court judge as having misled the jury. And because of that, the case is being retried currently in Shasta County at considerable expense to the taxpayers. I confronted Ms. Bridgette on that issue, as a matter of fact, in the League of Women Voters forum that was Thursday. And guess what? She denied it. She said that my accusation was a lie.
It was a mischaracterization of the case, is what she said. And
she flat out said that it was. In fact, I could read to you exactly what she said. And I challenged her. I said, I will actually produce the document so that the people know the truth. Another example of that is something I think Tom can speak to. It's almost a challenge. It's an assumption that the people in the public are not going to be able to figure it out. And because this is the law and there's a lot of legalese, it is difficult for people to figure out. I mean, the average person is not going to know whether a plea deal, what a plea deal is, probably. And if they do, there's no way of ascertaining whether the plea is good or bad. And there was a show that Tom was telling me about that Ms. Bridgette was on, I think, just a week and a half ago, where she represented on air that she had achieved a fantastic plea deal. This was her defense for having so many plea deals. And in fact, Tom, you can share the story of what the reality was from somebody who knows.
Hold on, though. We're going to have to come back to that just because we have another caller on the line, and Eric is a very popular person. No. We have another question for Eric. We got
caller, go ahead. We have a little delay, folks, so you guys who are watching, just kind of bear with us here.
Remember, we got this giveaway on 2 shirts and 2 hats, Blueprint hats and shirts. for the best question.
Hi, Tori.
Hey, Tori.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going, Tori? What's your question,
Tori?
Hi, Woody. Hi, Carlos.
How are you?
Good, good. I have a question for Eric Jensen. I'm a huge supporter of transparency in government, and I do think there is a swamp that needs draining here in Shasta County. I just want to know who specifically recruited you, Eric, to run for district attorney.
You want to know? You want to know all 30? Yeah. You want to know all 30 people? There were a lot of people who reached out to me. Initially, it was one person. I respect their privacy, and it was a member of my. It's somebody a colleague that I know. He's somewhat known in the community, but that's up to him whether he wishes to disclose that or not. But that was the original contact, and then from there, I spoke with other members of the community before making a decision to enter into this fray. There are about 30 or so people that I met with and made sure that my vision was consistent with their own philosophy, and that's how that was.
And as somebody who's been a part of this process, along with other people at this table, this is a very well thought out process. You know, this is having been a part of these conversations and these text threads and emails. Let me tell you that there was a pool of about 6 or 7 different candidates that we looked at that we wanted to run for this race. I'm not saying that I'm the person that picked Eric, I certainly was not that person. But as Eric came to the forefront, we started to look at him real closely and to ask the really hard questions, where he stood with regard to the Constitution. We got to know him, his wife, his family, his integrity, his record as an attorney, and he quickly rose to the top of that list, and this has been a community of people that have come and to support Eric and to put him in this spot, because it's a really important place. We feel that he is the exact man that we need at this moment for the job.
Well, in fact, I don't remember. I didn't talk to you, Carlos, until several weeks after I decided to run. So there are people in different groups. So it seems very monolithic. Sometimes there are people who are familiar with the recall group, some people that are familiar with red, white, and blueprint, et cetera. And then there's just people that are in the local legal community that have no affiliation with either group. So there were a bunch of different people, all with one common interest, and that was to make the district attorney's office a better place for the county. I wanted to go back to Ms. Bridgette's statement real quickly, because I have it. It's a direct quote. She said this, that I am 100% a person of truth, of honesty. That is so important to me, and that's why it has been very frustrating during this process to hear so much misinformation and outright lies about my office. If you know the truth about that case, this is the McHatton murder trial, that was just mentioned, and read the entire opinion and know about the case, characterizing it in that way is just not honest. It's just not. I have always been honest. It is very important to me. It's one of the biggest pillars of what a district attorney needs to do. The last sentence I agree with.
Can you do her body language when you?
Where can we find this case? I think this is important. This is the evidence that people want.
Okay, go onto my web page. On the Facebook page, I have both the opinion and my statement about it, and then you can find the video where she flat out, it deceives the public. There's no nice way to put it. But there's another instance that I wanted you to know about. We were mentioning it. Tom noticed this just listening to Ms. Bridgette on a radio show, and the public would have had no clue.
Yeah, she was on Carl Bott's morning program, and they were talking about many things, but she particularly touted her team's success at plea bargaining. But the only example she gave was a child molesting case where there were 3 victims, and she said, we got a plea to 30 years to life. Well, what the public probably doesn't realize is that when you have multiple victims for certain sex crimes, each of those victims, each incident is a 15 to life sentence that has to run consecutive by law. So it's it's typical to receive sentences that are 50, 100, 150 years to life. And more importantly, there's specifically a penal code section which says that those are the types of sexual assault cases that are not meant to be plea bargained, precisely because they're so serious.
This kind of reminds me of the newest Supreme Court appointee by Biden. But we do have a caller on the line.
We'll take that caller. She touts being pro-victim and how she's such an advocate for the victim. So what say you to the victims of these crimes, that were basically they're being, annihilated, to the point where he's paying the consequence of the price for one of the crimes when it should be many, is what you're saying, Tom. Yeah. Caller.
15 seconds. Go ahead, you guys. You got 15 seconds. A lot can happen. Maybe.
Well, I just want to point out the previous caller's question about, who recruited Eric. I think we're way late in the game. That's not the question anymore. It's why do we need change? And the example that Eric's provided is exactly why. Talk about dishonesty. Talk about misleading the public.
Deception.
This is not what we want in our district attorney. And that's why I say there's a failure of leadership that comes right from her down throughout the entire office.
There's a common thread happening right now between a lot of the candidates running right now, and none of them wanted to run. People, us peasants, us regular people went and said, hey, man, you got to do this. You're the guy who can step up and do this.
Yeah, I had a much easier life.
Like it's like we're taking money from George Soros or something is bullshit because... Okay, we got a question here from Brent.
Hey, Brent.
Eric.
Brent, come on, Carlos. You know it's way past my bedtime, but I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it heck. My first issue with Eric is he walks in there and gives you guys all ball caps, man. For the country life guy, that hurts.
Hey, we never had you bring us any hats, Brett. Actually, I was wearing. Wait, hold on. To be fair, I was wearing a hat that you gave me for the first part of the show. Now, so here we go.
Show it to the cameras over there.
Liberty or death. I love this one.
I saw that. I did. Hey, Eric, my daughter took all your pictures. My mom and dad, you go to church with them, Stan and Sharon.
Oh, she did an awesome job. She did a great job.
Absolutely. So I'm going to run one by you real quick, and I got one for Woody because I was talking to him the other night, and he had mentioned something, but I never really heard his answer. So my first one to Eric is, I see it all a lot that, he's just a workman's comp attorney. He has no experience. So I'd like you to back that up. And then as far as Woody goes, Woody, I'd like you to, after Eric, maybe just explain, because I heard you saying that of everybody, I would really like to see, Stephanie gone, and that was really important to you. And so I was just, I wanted to hear your reason for that. And man, I'll tell you what, I'm glad I didn't have to directly follow Nathan Blaze. That would have been a lot of pressure.
Brett, thank you, man. I appreciate your questions and you calling in, and I got your hat here. I appreciate that.
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, not only did your daughter do an incredible job on the photos, but what you may not know is that a wife of a chief deputy DA in Shasta County manipulated one of those photos to reflect a frown on my face. Literally photoshopped the campaign photo so that I look like a bad, angry person. This is how, this is
That's
part
what
of.
we've come to.
Yeah, it's very sad. But anyway, workers' comp. So this all stems around a kind of a misconception of two things: not only my background, but also of what it is that a district attorney does. So, in regard to my background, I do have some experience in criminal law. Back when I was in law school, I was a law clerk at the Orange County District Attorney's Office for a couple of years under the tutelage of probably one of the best prosecutors in the entire state of California. Had a 64-0 murder conviction rate, I mean, that was, the Orange County District Attorney's Office is a massive place. It's like a 12-story building. It's a huge operation. And I, was privileged to learn a lot there.
You said 64 and 0?
64 and 0. It is the record. It is a state record. Okay.
Wow.
So,
we're going to
and
wrap this up with the answer to these questions. We're out of time.
Yeah, and I consulted with him before I entered the fray, of course. My background is beyond workers' comp. I have a number of years in private practice doing personal injury cases, arguing before the Court of Appeals, et cetera. Anyway, none of that is particularly relevant because the job of a district attorney, in spite of what is being fomented by their office for very self-serving purposes, is not to personally prosecute rapists and murderers. That's in her candidate statement, and that's irrelevant to the job. She has personally prosecuted one case in the last 5 years. Her predecessor, Steve Carlton, prosecuted 0. The job of the prosecutor, of the district attorney, is to act essentially as an ombudsman between the community and the law enforcement agencies in this county. It's to make sure that the entire community is safe, and involves much more than prosecuting cases. There's victim assistance. There's all sorts of things that go into it. There's educational programs, et cetera. So that's in regard to my background and why. And look, what I'm bringing to this equation is a private industry efficiency that has been sorely lacking in public government. In the work that I do, she likes to say that her people work so hard. I have not had a job yet where I haven't been required to bill basically 230 hours a month. Okay, that works out to 55 hours a week. So the fact that some of her attorneys work nights and weekends, that's typical in private industry. So we're going to bring some efficiency, some accountability to the public sector in a way that we haven't seen it before. And look, this is not something that I can do by myself. It's going to take a team. You got to get people in place. There are going to be 2 chief deputy DAs, like I said at the outset of the program, one to handle the trial calendar and then one to handle the administration of the office. That's how Steve Carlton had it. That's how I will have it. It's not an uncommon scenario. And I think that we're in really good position. I've talked to lots of people who have interest in working at the district attorney's office who either left or were denied opportunity and are eager to get back. And they're talented people.
Beautifully spoken. We've got to wrap it up because we're basically out of time. And we have our next candidate, it's Brian Caples. So
wait. I gotta say from Brent. I'm gonna say the biggest. There's a list of reasons, but here's the problem with Stephanie Bridget. She's political. She's taking case based on politics. I don't believe she knows good guys from bad guys. She's quick to prosecute law-abiding citizens. It's happened to several of my friends. And I've talked to too many cops that have good cases. One just this Monday that said they had a great case in there. He was really distraught because she declined to file on it. And I hear it time and time again. So that's why
3,000 cases in 2021, their office did nothing with. 3,000 cases referred by law
friends in law enforcement who have cases on our desk that have been in for 3 years. We're talking about child molestation, rape cases, that have not been filed yet. So
thank you, Eric Jensen. Thank you, Tom
Guys, get out
Toller.
and vote.
We really appreciate you
Thank
guys coming. Make sure to share us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
thousands of viewers
YouTube
tonight, which is awesome,
Facebook.
guys,
we don't make any money on this. Please, if you want to contribute, you want to be like in this fight, just share this content. It's so important. We don't use money to boost this stuff. We put our own money, our own time into this. If you could do anything to help the cause, please just share this content. We're not doing this to gain any. None of us are. Just please share it.
Guys, we're going to be gone for about a minute and a half.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes,
the guy
sir.
that said the story about having a prosecutor lie to him, reach out to me. I want to get these stories.
Okay, sounds good.
Right.
Thank you. Are we on?
All right.
Sweet. All right, guys, here we are. Man, this is the finish line here of a marathon that we've been running here with this 3-hour-long podcast. It's been awesome. It's been electric. I'm energized. I'm still going. God, I think we have not enough time to cover all the topics we want to cover, but here we are. I do want to address something that was talked about in the last segment because I know that this will get twisted by the other side. Let's make this clear that I did not recruit Eric Jensen. That question was asked. I was privy to the conversations that were going on. I was privy to those emails and seeing what was happening, but it was not me. In fact, I did not meet Eric until after he'd already made the decision to run. I think it's important to clarify those kinds of details in these races. So here we are. Lonnie, kick it off.
Well, we have our giveaway still on the table, literally, but 2 shirts, 2 hats for the best question from the caller. So awesome. Get on the lines, give us a ring. We want to hear from the people. That's why we're all sitting here at this table, and I know that's why Brian's sitting here with us. So,
Mr. Brian Caples running for school
Hang on. I got to say something. I think so far Michael is
he's winning the shirts. I'd love
winning one of the
this shirt
shirts.
might fit Michael. He's kind of
it'd fit Mike,
a slender guy.
But so far, guys, we've had a couple thousand viewers, which that's awesome. We need you to get out there and
keep
like
sharing
it,
this. So
share it.
Just because you didn't share it when it's live doesn't mean you can't share it later, right, Woody?
That's right. Yeah.
I can't share. I'm not on Facebook anymore. But if you're on there, go on there and share it with your friends. It's important that people listen to what we've talked about. There's a lot of good information out there. And we're talking about facts today, folks. We're not talking about opinions. We're not talking about, political affiliations. We're talking about truth, integrity, transparency in government. And these are the things that we're hoping to address here. So, Mr. Brian Caples, you're putting your neck out there on the line, and we appreciate you. Tell us what you're running for and why you are running, why you're doing what you're doing right now.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's told you guys a few minutes ago, it's past my bedtime, so excuse me if I'm a little tired, so may not be my normal self. So
I'm in the same boat with you, brother.
Yeah, I'm getting old. So, but it's a pleasure to be here. I'm running for Shasta County Superintendent of Schools. I've had been in education for about 30 years, numerous jobs throughout my tenure, several years as a classroom teacher, taught junior high and taught elementary school. Several years as a principal and an assistant principal, and then 13 years as a school district superintendent, and about 15 years total teaching at the higher education level. So education has been a big part of my life. It's put food on my table for my whole adult life.
That's great. So you're coming to this point in your life now where you're retired?
Semi-retired.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you could kind of sail off into the sunset, spend time with your family, your wife, go on vacation. Instead, you're choosing to do this. What is the chief problem that you saw, that you identified, where you said, hey, I got to put my hat in the ring here and deal with this issue?
Well, it's all stemmed from the pandemic, much like many people. What we saw happen was the forced masking of our kids, the forced testing of our staff members, our aides, our teachers, and then the penalty for not wanting to test. I've got a couple people that I know dearly and that are close to me, and a number of other people in the county that were basically either forced out of their positions because they would not test, or they're in the process of being forced out. And the problem that I see with this, not only is it your individual right, if you don't have autonomy over your body, then in what you want to do medically with yourself, then you're not free, right? You're not a free person if you can't make those decisions. So the problem that I saw was twofold. It was that what they were doing in forcing people to do things that they didn't want to do. And the second thing, which is almost more important, was that no one was standing up for them. Not one person in this community or this county stood up and said, wait a minute, this is wrong. Why are we firing good teachers? Why are we firing, some of these people have been teacher of the year, teacher of the month. Why are we getting rid of them? These people are good for kids. So that's really when I kind of perked up. And then since then, I've done a lot more research, and there's a lot more going on underneath than most people probably even realize.
So people traditionally don't really pay attention, like many of these races, to what's going on with the superintendent of schools. I think people understand there's a school board and there's an administrator and there's teachers, but they don't understand really what's happening in the structure of a county. What's the superintendent of schools responsible for? What's his influence? What's his scope of work, if you will?
Right. Well, basically, the county superintendent of schools has oversight over the school districts in the county. There's about 25 school districts, give or take one or two. I believe there's about 15 charter schools. So there's roughly 40 school districts / entities that run schools in the county. Basically responsible for oversight, fiscal oversight, curricular oversight, doesn't have the ability to tell the school districts individually what to do, but they do guide them.
Sure.
And what's happened is our current county superintendent has basically just self-admitted that she's a liaison of the state. So whatever the state tells her to do, she just filters that down to the school districts, right?
And that's the point
let's talk
make.
about this.
Yeah.
Right? Is this what's best for us?
Because that's what the answer we keep getting from the other side is like, what did she do wrong? She was simply doing what the state told her to do. And that's the problem, because our whole idea here with this movement is to create an environment where we are not beholden to the state. You know, we're cutting those strings because we feel that we can isolate and insulate ourselves from all the crap that's going on at the state level, because we're different up here. We have a different way of life, a different set of values that we live by, different way that we think our kids should be educated and raised. And I think it's worth a conversation to say, hey, how do we create an environment where we do what's best for our kids without the state having a hand in it?
Yeah. I think that should be
is
the
that even
attitude.
possible? Is that just a pipe dream, or is that something that we can actually do?
Well, let me be perfectly honest with you. You don't want anything the state's giving you. You don't want anything that the state's pushing, right? The social emotional learning, the critical race theory, the gender confusion, all of this stuff is in your schools. They're in your school libraries. You would be shocked. I would dare anyone to go look in their children's class, their school library. See what kind of books are in
we
there.
have a question from Nathan Blaze, if you're willing to take it here, Brian. Maybe it might
Sure,
talk
he's
about
been
CRT and
after me
stuff.
for the last several months. What's one more?
Go ahead. Let's throw it out there, guys. All right. Yep. We got 20 seconds to put it on there. And
so as we're waiting for Nathan to come on the line here,
Yeah.
you know, I want to make a point to say that we invite this kind of conversation. We're nice enough, you know, and smart enough to not be scared of the other side. You know, so somebody wants to call
We're
in.
always
and
willing
ask
to
us
have an
questions.
intelligent
we'll have
conversation.
an intelligent debate. We'll have a discussion about it. You know, the issue is that they don't do the same to us. They attack us personally. They attack us with lies. You know, so I'm glad we're taking this call.
Go ahead, Nathan.
Go ahead, Nathan. You're on the line.
Hey, Brian Caples, is he still there?
Yes.
Hey, what's up, Brian? Nathan Blaze here. I just had some questions for you. I was able to view your debate with Judy the other day, and I just have some questions for you about critical race theory. My first question for you is, what is your definition of critical race theory?
Well, critical race theory comes in many shapes and forms. It's not generally termed as critical race theory. When you talk about gender equity, implicit bias, those types of things, that's what critical race theory is, right? Telling kids that because their forefathers were white and maybe owned slaves or lived in the 1700s, that they should feel guilty about that. That's critical race theory. It's just one component of it.
I don't think that's what critical race theory is, though. I think what critical race theory is just encompassing the entirety of our American history into the teachings that are brought to our children in schools. Like, just because we don't like something that happened in our country or we're ashamed of it doesn't mean that our children and new generations shouldn't learn about those things and be taught about those things to affect future generations. Like,
I don't think that we're excluding things from history, Nathan. I don't think there's any teacher out there who's not teaching the entirety of history. And we're not even proud of many things that have happened in our history, but we teach them as a way to learn lessons. But I think what Brian would say, and he can answer this for himself here in a second, but what I would say as a historian is that we learn from history, but we should never be ashamed of who we are today as people, because nobody in this room has owned a slave. And I'd be hard-pressed to find somebody whose ancestors even
proud to be a human.
Slaves, you know? So for me to feel bad about who I am, for my kids to feel bad because they're white or whatever it may be, I do not want my kids to grow up that way. I want them to have an understanding
That's not
of
what critical
history
race theory
and
is, though.
understanding
It's
of
not,
the America that we live in.
It's not trying to make kids feel bad about something they didn't do. It's just education of something that happened in our country. You know, it's education of why there is things like systemic racism. Fundamental
racism. We can go down this road, Nathan. It's a conversation we can have later on.
Let's let Nathan tell us what critical
go
race
ask your
theory
second
is.
question.
Go ahead and tell us what critical race theory is, because go ahead and tell us what it means. And
this is my opinion. I'm not telling you what critical race theory is. I'm just telling you what my opinion of what critical race theory is. That's it.
We're listening.
My opinion of critical race theory is just finally an inclusion of events that have happened in our American history that have created the systems that are in place today. That's what critical race theory is.
What does it have to do with race?
It's explaining why black people don't have generational wealth in this country. Not even just black people, but generally people of color. You know, and I'm not blaming you guys. None of you own slaves. I'm not blaming any modern white people for the shitty things that their ancestors did or anybody's ancestors did that were shitty things.
Hey, Nathan.
I'm just saying that it should be something that is acknowledged and not owned. I don't think these kids need to own shit that someone else did before them. It's not on them, but they need to know about it.
But listen,
and that's what I think critical race theory is. That it kind of helps explain why there's a differential in this country between people of color getting opportunities and people that aren't of color getting opportunities.
What do you say about the 60s when Lyndon Johnson started all the welfare programs and the Great Society, and it was targeted and aimed a lot at the inner city blacks, and they've been trapped there ever since.
Woody, if that's true, then fuck that guy. I agree with you. That's fucked up.
Yeah,
that's some shit that shouldn't have happened. I agree with you. That's fucked up.
You know, I think to say that race isn't an issue would be naive. You know, but to say that there's systemic racism and that people are racist naturally as a result of the system in America, I think that's a flawed view, Nathan. I'm sorry it's been your experience. I'd be happy to have this conversation. I'm by no means demeaning your concern here, but I think that's another conversation that we'd have later on. I'd be happy to have it. You know, is there issues we need to deal with? Absolutely. You know, but is this systemic to the point where kids need to have that put on their shoulders? I don't think so. I think we need to be taught history in its entirety, as you said, correctly, and then let people, come up with their own intelligent opinions about what that means.
I just have a statement to say, hey, what if the CRT was created to divide people, and we should all be humans, and what if this was used as a way to just take us apart and be talking about race when really race isn't really the issue,
Race is an issue, though. That's the problem, and maybe you don't understand that because you're not a person of color. Like I don't understand. I'm not in your mind, John. I'm not in your mind. I'm just saying that there are issues that
I wrote a paper in high school years ago
don't understand
about this, and I think this requires some conversation about things that aren't popular, about thoughts and opinions that maybe might not be received but well by the other side, But the black community has a problem. It starts with being a fatherless community. I think there's things that we need to do that they need to address internally.
So I don't have a father. My dad left when I was a kid. How is that my fault?
It's not your fault, but it's a problem within the black community, Nathan, that needs to be addressed. This is, again, you're taking us down a road right now. Right now, we're talking about the schools. We're talking about, a person that's running for superintendent in schools and what that entails. And we can have that. I'm going to cut you off right now, not because what you're saying is not valid. It's just not the place right now to have this conversation. Do you have another question, Nathan?
No, I'm on critical race theory. That's my question. If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine.
I appreciate your call.
You can concede the discussion if you like.
Yeah.
Well, that's a legitimate question.
It is.
I appreciate his freedom of, speech.
No, listen,
it is. I think it's absolutely.
I think we need to address these things. But when you create, like you're saying, division and confusion in these kids, kids need structure. They need to feel proud of who they can be, regardless of what their history
should be proud of who they are.
So my problem with this is that not everybody feels like Nathan feels. There's people out there who literally want your kids to feel guilty for being white, and there's teachers out there that are doing this. I want to see them be condemned, and we never can accept this or tolerate this in Shasta County. So Brian, go ahead.
This is a social mode of control, though. And that's where I was trying to go with it. Go ahead, Brian.
Wouldn't you say, Brian, that it's the educational system's job to teach our kids history, science, math, not critical race theory, not gender, all the gender bias and all these. Where does the parenting end in schools?
I want my kids to know how to read, how to write, how to think critically about things, especially history, and to know what steps they need to take in order to be successful in life.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. Is we spend so much time trying to socially engineer these things. There's not time to teach reading, writing, mathematics. I have to tell you, I appreciate how civil he was, because they're not always civil with me on Facebook and Instagram and those things, and the emails that I get. So I got to tell you, I'm appreciative of how civil he was, and we had a good conversation. But things like critical race theory lead to things like our County Office of Education is pushing right now, things like called equity in grading, which means if you are African American, if you are from a low socioeconomic status, those types of things, well, then they're going to take that into account on how they grade you. Right. So someone.
I'm glad that I was never, because of my name and my family's background, being the son of immigrants, held to a different standard than everybody else.
It's not.
It was an A.
It's not good. It's not good for them. No. It's not good. Right. If they do C work, they should get a C. That's just the way it is. So those types of things. Right. It's not teaching you. It's not teaching you how to be tough. It's not teaching you how to be resilient. It's not teaching you how to work hard.
And guess what?
Those are all foundations.
Aren't they trying to get rid of grades anyway?
But say that
there's a push for it.
To say that there's no such thing as kids who are disadvantaged is false. There are kids who are disadvantaged. There are kids who didn't grow up in the ideal household, whose parents aren't present, that they're not teaching them at home. Of course, but that's all the more reason to teach that toughness and resilience and grit, which Lonnie talks about all the time. That's what we need to teach these kids is you know what? Yeah, you might be disadvantaged right now, but it doesn't mean you're disadvantaged forever,
I learned it from a 5th grade teacher. I had a 5th grade teacher. When I was 9 years old, my father passed away suddenly. So you can imagine how those of you that have lost a parent, even as an adult, it's horrible, right? It's detrimental to your psyche. But as a young child, to lose a father at 9 years old, just suddenly out of nowhere, is devastating. The next year was a rough year, right? I wasn't really into school. I wasn't really into doing anything. And so the next year I had a gentleman named Bob Holmes, was my 5th grade teacher. That man taught us how to work hard. He taught us that we could be somebody. He taught us how to be tough. He taught us how to be resilient. He taught us that we could do whatever we set our minds to. And he's the reason why I became a teacher in the first place. And I was 10 years old at the time, and he had such an impact on me. And I will never forget what he did and how hard he worked, because he wanted us to be successful when we became adults.
We have another caller?
We do have another caller. And I just want to say, going back to the CRT stuff real quick before we let the caller in, if you want to look into where some of this systemic stuff came in, you got to look at the deep state, and you got to look at, the gangster rap culture that was created by the CIA. And I got to admit that sometimes that old rich white men are the guilty people of a lot of these problems in the world. And so what? I don't really care what the race they are, but you have to look at feminism, that divided, that made women want to basically revolt against men and create division. And same thing with the gangster rap culture. There's two common threads with that.
Misogynistic culture there is. Yet it gets glorified, at the NFL Super Bowl.
What happens when you have gangster rap culture and you have people doing rap videos saying basically, hey, do this to this woman and this and slap a hoe and smoke some crack and sell some crack on the street. And I'm just saying, and what was that? That was all designed to create this, to be like, hey, if you want to be the cool guy, you're going to sag your pants, which actually we're in prison. If you're in prison and you sag your pants, that means you're open for business. Just throwing it out there. But
I thought Slapaho was an Indian tribe in Kansas.
Let's take a caller here.
Okay. We got a caller here. I'm getting off track here. We got a caller for Brian here, and go ahead, get it ready.
Hey, it's me again, Rebecca. Hi, Brian.
Hey.
So I was trying to listen for someone to try to attempt to hijack the podcast. So I decided to call in and ask you myself in case it didn't get covered. I'm assuming that you're familiar with AB 329, the California Healthy Youth Act, along with the SEL, CRT, and all the other junk that they're pushing in our schools.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and then that being, it's mandated statewide twice, once in junior high and once in high school. And they tell you that they tell parents sneakily that you can opt out of the new, or out of sex ed. But what they don't tell you is that it's just the original old school sex ed, not all the LGBTQ plus stuff that they're pushing, and the grooming and teaching kids to consent and a bunch of other things that I've discussed on this podcast before. So is there anything that we can do regarding that mandate since it's legally binding in our schools locally here in this county?
Well, I think it comes down to each individual school district. At a county level, what I can tell you as a county superintendent, the county superintendent is in charge of a few different particular populations of students. Those schools and those students that I would serve directly, I would say we're just not doing it. I don't care. We're not pushing that on our children. As far as the school districts go, I would make sure that I advocated and let those school boards know. A lot of times your school boards I got to be honest with you, they don't really know what's going on.
They don't.
They know what they're told, and they look to the superintendent and the administrators in the district office for guidance. So one of the things that I would do is make sure that I educated all of our school board members on all of this stuff. That's going to be job number one. First of all, to make sure that our school board members know their rights and their responsibilities. Because if you'll remember during this pandemic, almost all of your school board members said, well, there's really nothing we can do. The county office is making us do it. And the county office says, well, the state's making us do it. Well, these are all elected officials. So who are they serving, right? They're serving the state. They're not serving the constituents that elect them to these positions. So I think one of the things that I will be able to be an advocate and to be able to call out school districts and let them know, first of all, that it's in there, show them where it's at, show them how to find it. Then they'll need to make a decision on whether they want to do it or not themselves. What I would tell them is they need to own that decision. You need to be telling parents exactly what is in that curriculum. And if you're going to do it, you need to own it. And if you're not going to do it, you need to own that too.
And I think there's a disconnect, right? Because you have parents who work, who expect the school to be doing the right thing, and we trust that when our kids get dropped off in the morning and come back to us in the afternoon, that was productive time when they were learning, when they were being taken care of, their best interests were being upheld, and that's not always the case. So bad on us parents, for trusting the school so much, but we're trying to elect people and put people in place that we can entrust our children with, because that is our most valuable asset that we have.
One of the knocks I've heard on Brian from a couple principals, and a superintendent is that he's been known to be adversarial. And
is that a bad thing?
Well, I'm talking to my wife.
I'm thinking. Well, what I said to them, I said, we're heading into a time where literally once we get past these elections in November, that Senator Pan is going to try and get that law passed where the kids are going to have to be vaccinated. He's going to do it. They just held him off.
No, that's
until
dead.
After.
It's dead now.
No, it's not dead.
It's coming.
Yeah, it'll come back the next year.
Okay. That's what they do. They
relabel
retract it.
Of
They
course.
put it out there. They retract it, and they bring
That's
it back.
true. And who do you
Senate
want
just passed
in
for
there
12-year-olds to be able to consent
giving
to COVID
guidance to our
vaccination.
superintendents,
Hold on.
except for a guy that's not
Hold on.
scared
We
to
got,
fight
we got
with
the
it.
caller asking questions.
Yeah.
Next,
The
new
Senate
caller?
just passed for 12 years old and older can consent to the
That's
COVID
true.
vaccination.
That's true.
So that's why they're having these clinics on campus, because that was their goal, is to be able to circumvent the parents and now, entice the children and pressure them into getting this vaccination.
That is 100% true that now in California, they have passed a bill that if you are over 12 years old, you do not need parental consent on any vaccines, especially. That is 100%.
I mean, listen,
Can I just say
my
that if
kids are
my
smart
12-year-old
enough.
kid got vaccinated without my consent, you would not want
not
to
going to
be
bed
the
that
guy.
Don't say it. Don't say it, Woody.
You would not want to be the guy that gave
But
them
here's
that
the
shot.
deal. Our kids are strong enough. We've raised our kids to think a certain way, to understand the way the world works. We don't shelter our kids. So I know it wouldn't be my kids. My kids would absolutely 100% not put, not put anything in their bodies.
Yeah, but there's a lot
that
of
way.
kids.
There's kids that don't know, and they're going to take advantage of those kids, of those weaker kids.
Okay, we got to go to the next question, you guys, but I'm with you, Rebecca, 100%.
Do we have another caller?
We have one more caller, yeah.
Rebecca, thanks
We
for
got
calling
to take
in.
this. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Okay, we got 10 seconds, and the next caller's coming in.
So, and that's the truth. I mean, they're going to take advantage of the kids who don't come from a home where the parents educate them at the dinner table, or just around the house. And this is an issue.
People
because
still need to be held liable because...
No.
Okay.
We have a caller on the line.
What's the question?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. What's your name?
Hey, this is Providence Palisadro.
Hey, how's it going?
Providence, dude, you guys are customers of mine. I sell you guys all kinds of gardening supplies.
Wait, what?
Providence?
No, I think you have the wrong person, John.
Completely wrong person.
You're close. All right, go ahead, Providence. What's up?
Hey, I just wanted to offer you guys words of encouragement. When you have an election like this, there are some contests where there's two good candidates, but when you have contests such as DA and county superintendent, you're looking at a lot of opposition there. And when you're looking at as much opposition as this side is receiving, you know you're onto something good. And so I just wanted to tell Brian, keep it up, and I want to tell you guys, keep it up.
Thank you,
We're
sir.
Fighting
Thank you, sir.
We're fighting for the soul of our county.
That's right.
We really are. And what you just said is the most important thing. We're fighting for the soul. I said this the other day when we were watching the show, and it showed a bunch of liberals crying about the Roe v. Wade thing, you know. And I said, they all look the same. And I think you said it, Woody. I think you said, well, it's because they don't have a soul. You know, they're soulless, you know. So we're fighting for the soul of not only our community, our county, but the soul of this country that's been lost for so long. It's been eroded for the last 60 years. And we're just trying to get this back because that's what makes us different as Americans. It's the fact that we have a soul, we have a conscience. We care about the least of these. We care about the unborn. You know, we care about children who don't come from great homes that need help in school, you know, and we care about these things. So,
well, you have people that are, you know, really pissed off they can't sacrifice unborn children to Satan, and actually kids that are born already up to 28 days or 7 days to
make
Satan.
the argument that a woman should be able to choose to kill her kids, and she was 100% serious. You know, I thought it was a parody. It was not, sadly.
And then you have people who are trying to preserve the future for humanity.
Sure. And the caller was correct in that when you meet resistance, you know you're on to something good. If we had no resistance, if we had no opposition, we would just be status quo. There'd be nothing there.
I think it's pretty simple. Her campaign says re-elect. Yeah. I love that she put that on all her signs because you want what just happened.
Yeah.
When they roll out the next thing, because we all can feel it coming.
And
they're already going to push the vaccine thing. You got a senator that's just waiting to launch it after the next, election cycle. So you want what happened last time? You want that to come back around? Just re-elect.
Yep.
If you believe in that and you want to see the result that's happened to your kid, the contact tracing, the lack of attendance at school, the things that
Kids
they're pushing
in the
just re-elect.
because they were exposed to somebody who got exposed to somebody else.
Yeah, now they can't play basketball. Yep. Or you want your kid to play volleyball with a mask on. All that stuff, don't forget it. Because when that sign says re-elect, it's real simple. That's what we're going back to. Leave the status quo and not see any progress, not see a move.
Back, Lonnie, this is what people don't understand. People say, well, we're past the pandemic. That's old news. That was so last year. You know, we got past it. But
it's coming back,
but
brother.
It's coming back. It's coming back with a vengeance. And we're going to have somebody who's strong in place who's willing to be the resistance for us. So,
absolutely. Because
I'm turning down Nathan. Just for right now, we only got a couple minutes left.
I don't want to hear from that guy anymore.
I'm sorry, we don't have time for a caller. I'd love to hear what he's got to say, but we've only got 2 minutes left. So
you're the closer, Brian. What do you got?
I think the problem we have is twofold. It's stopping all the things that we're doing that we shouldn't be doing, but we've still got to get these kids ready to be successful when they become adults. Right? They need the skills. People don't realize this because my opponent, what she said is everything's great, test scores are good, graduation rates are good. Well, what she doesn't tell people is that the students that I was talking about earlier that she is directly responsible for, 5% of those students are proficient in mathematics. Mm-hmm. That's 5 out of 100, out of every 100. Roughly 17% of those kids are proficient in English language arts.
Sure.
Those aren't good numbers, gentlemen. I've worked in some low-performing schools, but I've never worked in a district that was that low-performing. Her graduation rate, she touts a graduation rate of going up. And what she did was she added up all the other school districts in the county and added those up and says, our graduation rates are going up. What she doesn't tell you is the graduation rates for the schools that she oversees directly went down 17% last year.
On top of that, I believe the standards have gone down.
Oh, well,
I'm just
throwing
that out there.
I think that we have to have a reboot of the way that we approach education as well, because for so long we were told that your success is being measured by what college you go to, by college entry. Okay, we need to change that. There's so many smart kids that simply, my own kids say, I don't want to go to college. Why do I go to college where I'm going to be brainwashed with all this academic bullshit, that has no relevance to real life? So how do we create a system, a school, an academic process where kids can feel like, I might not be college bound, but I'm going to go to work. I'm going to run a business one day. So what say you to that? Because we need to bring back our shops for vocational education is really important.
Absolutely. Well, what education is in the United States, and it always has been, is a very thin layer of knowledge about a lot of subjects or topics, right? You have a very thin layer of knowledge. What we need, the world we live in now, you need a specific skill set to be successful. Let me give you an example. My future son-in-law opted not to go to college for some of the same reasons that you just talked about, right? He was going to go spend 4 years, probably come out in debt, not really have any tangible skills to do anything in the future with. What he did was he went to a coding school, a very intense coding school for about 6 months. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it cost him about $15,000 or something like that. It wasn't a fortune.
Yeah. He can make that back.
He's 20 years old. He's making over $100,000 a year.
Perfect.
He hasn't even been in the business for a year because he has a very specific skill set, and he's become an expert at doing what he's doing.
But for
He's
so
only getting
long,
better
we've
at it.
had the metric where we've measured success, and schools measure and they tout their success by how many kids go to college upon graduation. Well, I said, no, let's measure success by 5 years down the road. Where are these kids? Are they heavily indebted with no direction on where to go in life? Are they working for a family business, starting their own business, working for somebody else, making money? Maybe starting a family, those kinds of things. So we need to change the way that we measure these things, I think, and so that's more realistic and more inclusive.
It can't be a process that just makes you really good at school.
No.
Right, just
and that's largely
regurgitating
what
information.
the process is. There's a new book. You really know that book well? Okay, good. It's all perishable.
Sure.
So what sticks? And that's why I always go back to the same things we're all talking about is the moral character, the grit, the work ethic, those foundational
Tough
things.
people.
Not necessarily that you can score the highest during the test. Because I know some very, very successful people in life that they were not the highest test scorers. And you can just get really good at taking
the
tests.
standardized
And some of them
testing,
aren't
too, to
tests
me,
and they
needs to
get
go
left
away,
behind. They're just not good at tests.
The standardized testing is exactly what it is. It's standardized to a point where it's not letting these kids feel good about themselves and their true potential. It's being measured by a test under duress, under where they don't even want to be there. It's time, So I said, man, let's measure success differently, and I think we can do that.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to cut out some of those things, the social emotional learning, the critical race theory, and I would like to teach kids skills like entrepreneurial skills.
100%.
How to invent something, how to make something, how to market
invest.
something.
Yeah.
Right. Those are skills that we need. The world has changed dramatically. Yeah. We're all probably close to the same age, but the world has changed dramatically from when we were educated, even when I was in college.
Sure.
20 years ago. The world has changed. We need specific skill sets for these kids. And let's be honest, they need to be doing something that they enjoy doing because you're going to do it for another 40 years, right? So if it's something that you enjoy or that you love, for me, education was never work. It was never work to be a principal. It was never work to be a teacher. And it was never work to be a superintendent because I enjoyed doing it so much.
Sure.
So we need to guide kids towards things that they enjoy and things that they'll be successful at.
Guys, I think we're out of time. Brian, thank you. It's been awesome. I commend you again, as the rest of the candidates, for putting your neck out there.
Oh my gosh, the phone's calling again.
And doing something that most people would never have the courage to do, for standing up and saying, hey, these kids are willing to fight for.
I appreciate it. Thank you. They're worth it.
You want to take the last call?
Who's calling? Let's see. We'll take it. You know what?
We just
Doesn't
want to
matter
thank
who it is.
Thank
We'll
everybody
take it.
though for joining us. Episode
Let's take
50.
it. Who cares? Whoever it is, just
last call.
It's all good.
Last call for alcohol. Here
Is
we
it
go.
Nathan? Bring it on.
Are we taking it?
All right, we'll take it regardless. Come on,
Let's go.
let's wrap this thing up. Let's do it. Make the question really quick. Phone's ringing again.
Guys, I think we need to wrap it up.
Hello.
Hi, yes?
Hello, caller.
Hello?
Yes. Last question, please.
Wonderful. My name is Karina. I'm calling to ask or say something first, but I love the idea of, Brian, that you have about all these programs that you would like to implement or things you'd like to see, like entrepreneurship and all those good things. Is it even possible in your position to implement programs like these? And if so, do you have a game plan for how to implement these and a team to help you implement these things?
Yes, they'll all have to be put together once I get in office, and we'll certainly have a team to implement them. They would now. These are things that I wouldn't be able to force them on school districts. We would want to be able to do things to offer them offerings so that they could do that. We want to make it easy for them. We want to make it things that are worthwhile for them to do. We want to make sure that they're good for kids. And what I'd like to do is make them free so that the county office pays for it. The county office sets everything up, and the school districts can just implement it at their leisure. So I wouldn't be able to force them to do it, but I would advocate and let them know that we have a menu of options that you could choose from to meet the needs of your individual district and your individual groups of kids.
Do you already have access to these programs, and are they built?
Thank you for the call. Guys, it's been awesome. It's been great. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh wait, we got to announce the giveaway winners
real quick. Share this. Okay, we're not going to be live here in about a couple minutes, but it will still be up on social media. Share it with your friends.
Get the word out.
Worth getting the word out for. So,
heck yeah! And the giveaway winners, Nathan Blaze, Susie Mason, and Tyler Carlton.
Right on.
So
how do they claim the prize?
Yeah, how are they claiming their prize? Yeah. Shoot us a comment. We'll get back to you, and we'll find your profile.
All right, guys. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks.
Hey, so make sure you guys to please share this content. We don't get paid for anything. If you want to get involved in the fight, just please share this content on any social media you got. We're on Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Instagram. Most importantly, mountaintopmedia.com. And anyways, thanks you so much for tuning in, and thanks everybody for showing up tonight. Love y'all.
Thanks, Brian.